Yu tries to light a lantern to break up the darkness, but her friend quickly stops her since they need to save fuel. She tries to keep talking about how long they've been stuck in darkness, but her friend just cuts her off and tells her to drop it. Yu's still struggling to adjust to the darkness. Her friend starts thinking out loud, realizing sunlight hasn't shown up in days, and wonders how long it's really been since they last saw it. The friend then questions why they even got stuck in a place like this, showing just how confused and lost they both feel. While they pass a huge industrial fan, the girls quietly second-guess how they got here and how they ended up so lost in this strange place. Her friend finally blurts out the big question of why they're even stuck here, forcing both of them to face their messed up situation head-on. She just snaps back, saying her friend was the one who really wanted to check out the hole, tossing the blame right back. Their argument circles again, with Yu asking if her friend started it, and her friend insisting she didn't. Neither will own up to who got them into this mess. A flashback reminds them that Yu once said she wanted to go in if there was a hole, and now both girls are dealing with where that led them. She tries to avoid being blamed for getting them stuck, but her friend isn't convinced and feels uneasy about how it all spiraled. As the ride crawls across a high metal bridge, the girls talk about how they're running low on food and seriously need to find a way out soon, looking up at endless pipes and scaffolding. One girl tries to stay positive by saying they'll find more food later, even if it doesn't sound convincing. She wonders out loud what will happen to them next, hoping her friend has some answer, but everything still feels totally unsure. Before anyone can say more, Yu notices her friend is already fast asleep, leaving her alone to worry for a while longer. Seeing her friend passed out, Yu gives up fighting her own exhaustion, stops the vehicle, and turns off the engine so they can both finally rest. With everything shut down, Yu grabs her blanket and gets in next to her friend so she can try to relax and get some sleep too. Both girls lay side by side under their blanket, sharing what little comfort they can find as the darkness closes in. For now their vehicle sits completely still, dashboard lights off, giving them a moment of calm before anything else happens. Both girls drift off to sleep right there in the cramped vehicle, putting their search and all their problems on pause until morning. Packed tight under one blanket, Yu and her friend try to settle in and rest after all the stress and wandering. Half awake, Yu whispers that she's hungry, but her friend is totally out, so nothing changes, and they both just stay huddled up until sleep wins. The vehicle stays motionless in the huge empty building, quietly sheltering them while sleep finally takes over. She stirs, mumbling quietly while she starts to wake, but there's no noise, just silence pressing in on both girls. Her friend sits up, shivering from the cold and still looking groggy as she wakes up to how tough their situation really is. She yawns and rubs her eyes, glancing over to see Yu still sound asleep, then suddenly notices something weird about her. Her friend sees Yu drooling in her sleep, pokes her cheek, and can't tell if she should be grossed out or just laugh at how deep Yu's nap is. She keeps snoring and drooling like nothing can wake her, leaving her friend to just watch in disbelief at how out of it she is. Stuck inside the big, empty building, Yu's friend pokes her on the forehead to wake her, hoping to stop the drooling before it gets out of hand. When her friend glances at her now wet hand, she sighs, clearly annoyed, and probably just wishing they had real food instead of morning mess. Spotting a breeze, her friend decides they should track where the wind is coming from, thinking it might finally lead them to a way out. She wipes her hand, feels the draft, and realizes the air around them is actually moving for the first time since they got stuck here. Chito, her friend, tells Yu there's wind now, hoping it means there's an opening or escape route somewhere close. She wakes Yu up on purpose, making sure she knows this could be their big chance to get out. Both girls agree they'll follow the breeze, betting everything on the hope that it leads toward an exit. She gives a nod, agreeing the exit must be that way, and the two of them get set to move forward together. Her friend holds back, thinking if they're actually making the right call, but in the end, she points toward the new path so they can get moving. Together, they check their direction and head out, driving the vehicle with more hope, now that the way forward finally seems real. Moving farther ahead, one of them finally spots some light, which means there's actually something outside the dark factory. They get closer to the opening, both amazed that after so long stuck inside, they're finally seeing real daylight. She and her friend pause before eating, realizing this meal is the last of their food, and worry sets in as they look at each other in silence. They stand without talking, the relief of finding the exit giving way to the stress of having almost no food left. Their vehicle leaves the safety of the factory and rolls onto a narrow bridge, taking them out into a broken city that stretches way out in front of them. She celebrates being outside again, but her friend is surprised it's still night, realizing the city lights are so bright, it almost feels like daytime. The girls sit down and decide to share some soup as a way to mark their escape, even though they know they're almost out of everything. While they eat, Yu reminds her friend it's their last can, but for now, they both focus on enjoying the meal and feeling safe for just a moment. They savor every last bit of soup together, knowing how rare and special this small comfort is after all their struggles. Yu tells Chito not to worry about using up bullets and just keep practicing, since right now they've got enough to shoot without holding back. Running out of ammo isn't today's problem, so the tension drops a bit while they aim at scraps nearby. Their shots knock down more trash, and broken pieces fly as each target takes a hit in the snowy ruins. Yu asks Chito if she wants a turn, but Chito flat out rejects the idea and sounds pretty bored with the whole thing. Chito snaps that Yu's got no skill, basically telling her to give it a rest and leave the shooting alone for now. Yeah, pushes again, asking if Chito even needs a gun, but Chito just brushes it off, not wanting to argue or talk about weapons. Trying to move on, Chito suggests they look around the wreck more, since maybe they'll stumble across something useful in all this mess. Chito points out there might be some supplies if they dig deep, but doubts they'll find anything really valuable, especially food. She basically blurts out she'd give anything for real food, not just weird scraps, since hunger is still their biggest problem. Digging through the snow and rubble, they find a huge machine gun and heavy ammo, but it's just more of the leftover war junk that can't help their growling stomachs. They climb around a rusted, busted-up tank, which sits half buried in the snow and just adds to the mountain of useless old gear. Joking around, but half serious, Yu wonders out loud if maybe the tank would taste okay if they were desperate enough, since food is definitely scarce. On top of the tank, the girls look out at a wasteland full of decaying weapons, not a single helpful scrap in sight. Staring at all the ruins, Yu wonders why whoever built these machines didn't put the same effort into making food, and realizes hunger was always a real threat here. They admit that if people back then had filled these wrecks with packed meals instead of ammo, they'd have more to eat now and wouldn't be struggling so much. Yu tries to explain things weren't simple war forced people to build weapons instead of spending time or resources on making food. Their search takes a strange turn when Yu spots a wrecked airplane, and both girls can't help but get a little excited to see something different for once. Yu gets up close and tries to figure out if the plane was meant for fighting too, while Chito guesses it's probably just another weapon left behind. Looking at the bomber, Yu figures it's really only another tool made for war, not something that could have helped anyone stay alive. They stand there wondering if these planes ever flew, or if they've always just been these frozen, broken shells stuck in the wreckage. Inside the busted plane, Chito leans on Yu and says straight out that war was people fighting and dying, not much more to it. Yu questions why anyone would even start a war, not getting why people would create all this destruction for themselves. She tries to break it down, saying even a group of 3 would struggle if there's only enough food for 2 sharing runs out quick. Chito shrugs and points out that in the end, people just grabbed their weapons, fought, and died anyway, so all those reasons didn't save anyone here. They digs through the pile and shows off a huge weapon, bragging about how strong it looks. She suddenly grins, lifting up a stash of explosives. Now they could clear a path if needed, and both girls realize there's a whole pile waiting to be used. They check out box after box, but even with all the explosives, Yu still isn't sure what else is hidden inside, and Chito wants a straight answer. Working together, they pop open a new crate, hoping maybe this time it holds something that will actually help them survive, instead of just more leftover weapons. Yu pulls a box out of the pile, surprised that it looks different than ammo, and she hopes it might really be food while Chito eyes it hungrily behind her. Chito takes charge and says they should grab the box and carry it out right away, so Yu hugs the find close and gets ready to leave. Outside, everything is a frozen, wreck-shattered city. Empty streets and piles of debris remind them just how much the world has lost. Hauling the heavy crate, Yu and Chito drag it back toward their ride, trying not to look at the old, crashed plane looming overhead. They struggle to heft the box up onto their vehicle, which just makes how hard life is here even more obvious. They break open the crate, both tense, hoping for real food instead of more useless gear. Yu splits up the rations and hands Chito her portion, and for a change they both get to eat something that isn't scraps. As they start eating, Chito says it tastes like chocolate. Yu just focuses on enjoying a real meal. She admits she doesn't even know what chocolate is, but she's just happy to be eating. They notice each ration pack holds 5 bars, an odd amount, which leaves them with 1 extra. Just as Yu spots the leftover bar and leans in, a sudden noise grabs her attention. Chito cuts through the mood by aiming a rifle straight at Yu, snapping from friendly to serious about claiming the last ration. They hold Yu at gunpoint to take the extra food, and Yu freezes, realizing their friendship has hit a rough spot. Chito stands firm with her rifle raised, and Yu quietly accepts she can't win this time, giving up with a soft reply. She admits to herself she should have kept a weapon handy, now feeling foolish for trusting too easily. They just shrugs off Yu's regret, chewing her food in plain sight and making the whole thing feel a little childish. Yu snaps that Chito really ate the last bar, But Chito just brags that grabbing food comes down to fighting for it now, leaving Yu frustrated. Fed up, Yu charges and tackles Chito, both of them shouting as their argument explodes into a wild scuffle. They tumble around in the snow, Yu pinning Chito down and calling out to her. Her anger mixing with how close they actually are. The two keep wrestling, swapping complaints and rough laughs. And even as Chito groans, she can't help but laugh at how silly things have gotten. Both girls end up lying in the snow, Chito still boasting about the food while Yu groans and tries not to laugh, anger slipping away. Stretched out among snowy ruins, Yu gets warned to remember all this, so it's clear their fights over food and trust are far from finished. Yu and Excited ride through endless snow, surrounded by white as far as they can see, both quickly realizing they're completely lost in the cold, with nothing to guide them. She taps a snowball and jokes that being a poet must be easy, not really caring about the seriousness of the moment. Trying to make things lighter, Yu ends up admitting it really does feel like it's just the two of them left in the world, which makes things even heavier. While Yu tries to crack a joke, Excited snaps, frustrated that they're freezing and still have nowhere to go for real shelter. So the danger just keeps growing. Their ride keeps rolling past rows of huge abandoned power towers, making it feel like every safe place has disappeared for good. Ya throws out the idea that maybe they're just walking through some kind of afterlife, but Excited only rolls their eyes and says if that's true, it's just their bad luck. Excited finally says enough with Yui playing around in the snow, reminding her the cold is getting serious and now isn't the time to mess around. Both slump down in the freezing vehicle as more snow piles on, and Yu admits her head feels heavy and it's getting hard to stay awake. Trying to keep things light, Yu says the afterlife should at least be warm, but Excited just gets more annoyed that they're still stuck freezing. They point out they're shivering too much to be dead. They're just stuck suffering through the cold with no escape yet. As the storm gets worse, their vehicle grinds on through an empty field of towers, and it looks less and less likely they'll ever find any real cover. Both realize they are pushing their limits. If they don't find shelter soon, the cold could end up beating them. She squints into the white, fighting sleep as every breath turns to fog, and she has to force her tired eyes open. They also struggles to stay awake, mumbling, while the snow just keeps piling up on their shoulders. They finally crest a snowy hill, and Yu spots a giant weird building ahead, which sparks a flash of hope that maybe their luck's about to change. When Yu starts nodding off, Excited quickly shakes her awake, just as the vehicle rolls up to the base of the mystery building. Up close, both can finally see how enormous the place is, staring up in awe and wondering if this might finally give them a break from the cold. A close look at the twisted beams overhead shows how battered and strange this place has become. The ride crunches to a stop under the looming metal frame, and the building feels so big it almost swallows them whole. Yu tries to guess what this giant place is, but Excited feels it doesn't matter. They just need to find a way in if they want to survive. She pushes forward through the snow toward the messy pipes, her breath clouding in the cold as she tries to spot anything helpful. She pauses to look at the wall, hoping for a clue about where they are, but everything's so caked with ice and grime there's nothing clear to find. She brushes snow off a metal wall and finds some faded writing underneath, but a cold wind blows by and makes it even harder to read. She leans in and tries to make out the letters, but most of the words stay hidden, leaving them still in the dark about what this place could be. Yu keeps searching outside, but grumbles that she can't find any entrance, while Excited checks the area and points out the whole building seems ancient. Scanning around, Excited finally spots an odd pipe and calls Yuo. Over they both cross their fingers. This could lead them inside at last. She walks over and realizes something weird. This pipe isn't covered in snow like the rest are, so she figures there must be something different about it. Both look up as water drips down from a pipe above, and Yu wonders if the snow is melting there because maybe there's hidden warmth inside. Yu asks if the pipe might be giving off heat, but instead of waiting, Excited lines up a rifle shot to test the metal directly. They fire at the pipe, hoping to break it open and finally get them some way inside, or at least a shot at warmth. The bullet bounces right off the pipe with a sharp ping, so the metal doesn't give it first. After another shot, the pipe starts to crack, and the noise rings out even louder, showing they might finally break through. They fire again, and this time the pipe bursts, metal shards go flying and water sprays everywhere. Both Yu and Excited stare up as hot steam and water pour out of the busted pipe. Shocked by their luck, with hot water gushing out, Yu cheers, and Excited confirms it's actually hot. Their risky idea finally worked. Now that they have real hot water, the next move is obvious to both of them, so they quickly shift gears and get ready. She drives their little vehicle right under the broken pipe, getting it set where the water can pour in best. Hot water keeps shooting out of the pipe, quickly pooling in the spot they've picked for their bath. She waits on the vehicle as water keeps pouring in, watching their makeshift bath fill up fast. They both realize just how rare it is to find a working pipe like this out here. and can't help feeling a little lucky for once. Steam rises off the water, and you and Excited both agree their improvised bath is finally ready. They can't wait to get in. They rush to undress by the bath, glad to finally have some comfort. Just being out of their cold clothes makes the whole moment feel special. Yu takes off her shirt and sighs about how amazing the hot water feels, asking, Excited, when they last had a real bath like this. She checks the water with her hand before climbing in all the way, making sure it's safe and not taking any chances. She finally lowers herself into the bath, the heat soaking into her and instantly easing all the tightness in her body. Yu sinks in right away, but Excited hesitates at first, almost overwhelmed by the heat and needing a second to adjust. After a bit, both finally relax into the hot water, heads poking above the steam, letting themselves feel normal and safe for once. Yu leans back in the steamy bath, just soaking in how good it feels while the two of them settle under the old pipes together. Excited melts into the water, saying this is the best. Yu can't even find words for how much the warmth means right now. As they sit in the bath, Yu suddenly wonders what heaven even means. Still trying to wrap her head around how rare this comfort is, Excited answers that heaven is basically where you go after you die, and for a second, the mood dips as Yu sinks further into the warmth. Yu just laughs that she gets it now, but Excited says they're still pretty unlucky, both soak in the bath and the quiet as snow falls outside. The heat gets to Yu and she starts to feel dizzy, so she lifts herself up and realizes just how strong the hot water is. Yu tells Excited to add more fuel to the fire, but Excited gets annoyed, pointing out they've already grabbed enough wood for now. Excited grumbles about always ending up with the tough jobs while Yu just gives out orders, but still goes along with it. Frustrated, Excited calls out Yu for scribbling in her notebook again instead of actually pitching in. Yu sits by the fire, clutching her diary, and reminds Excited she explained what it was before. She points out that keeping a diary is important, especially since Excited is always forgetting things. She gets a bit more serious, explaining that memories fade unless you write them down, so diaries matter even in a place like this. They scoff, saying memories just cause trouble, and turns away to mess with their gear while Yu keeps writing. Yu presses Excited to keep track of basics like eating, but Excited isn't sure if they did until Yu reminds them they actually already ate. She looks over the pile of old books, pointing out how people recorded things for ages so nobody would forget how the world used to be. She admits she really loves books, knowing their survival now depends on burning most of them, even if it means losing what's left of the past. Holding what's left, Yu checks their last few journals and together with Excited, counts only 4 books left to burn or keep. She wonders if these are their last books ever, even if they keep searching and the idea hits them hard. They just shrugs and mutters that they get it, but that doesn't make either of them feel better. Yu spots the fire dying and tells Excited to toss on more fuel. Even so, she hugs the books close, not sure what to risk next. They warn they're almost out of burnable stuff, making every choice painful. They both feel the loss more when nothing's left to save them. Loose pages burn up fast, but it's obvious their whole supply is almost gone, and there won't be enough to keep the fire going much longer. She reacts fast as she realizes there's no kindling left, and the dwindling options start hitting her in a new way. Suddenly, a precious book catches fire, sending Yu into a panic. They really can't afford to lose even one more journal now. She scrambles to save what's left of the book, and Excited yelps from the heat. Putting out the fire turns into a small mess. Once the flames are managed, the two drop down by the weak fire, tired and upset. The book survived, but just barely. She notices an old book marked Kappa and tries to remember what that even means. It sits forgotten, with neither of them knowing the answer. Excited scolds Yu for not listening before, annoyed that their warning about the books didn't stick. When Yu admits she zoned out, Excited's frustration just builds. Yu tries to apologize for not paying attention, but Excited just glares back and stays silent, leaving the awkward tension thick between them. Tired of the argument, Excited stalks off toward the bed, but when Yu replies so flatly, it only sparks another round of insults. The wide, empty room feels even lonelier after their fight. Yu stands beside their tiny fire and battered bike, staring at the cold space. Standing there, Yu looks lost in thought, maybe replaying all the things that went wrong, or just feeling how trapped they really are. She stares up blankly, caught between being completely worn out and upset by everything that just happened. Finally, Yu drags herself over to the makeshift bed near the bike, while Excited is already curled up. The mood makes it clear their peace won't last for long. She settles by the small fire, pulling out a battered book and clutching it tight, hoping for a little comfort even if she can't really read what's inside. Flipping it open, she starts to write, grabbing at this tiny bit of routine like it might keep all the loneliness and fear at bay. She barely moves her pencil over the page, stuck somewhere between exhausted and numb, but tries to stick to this diary habit anyway. Sitting in the pale glow near their bike, Yu quietly scribbles in her book, while the rest of the massive room stays quiet and cold. All you can hear is Yu Yu's pencil scratching the paper in that huge, empty building, but she keeps going, not ready to let go of her little ritual. One narrow view shows the huge factory walls and silent machines, making it clear how cut off they are from the world they used to know. Looking out across the ruined, snow-buried city, broken buildings stretch as far as you can see. Whatever comes next is anyone's guess. The next morning, Yu stands and yawns in a patch of daylight, while Excited points out just how much more snow has piled up outside. Back by their bike, Yu asks if they can finally move on. Excited checks the drift and thinks maybe they can, so there's a spark of hope. But as they look up at a giant wall of broken concrete, both remember just how much could go wrong if they try to leave this place. Excited snaps at Yu, telling her to stop wasting time and get on the bike, signaling it's time to leave, no matter how uncertain things feel. Yu hugs her diary close, thinking that even if everything else falls apart, having this record makes it feel like what they're going through isn't just empty. Excited catches Yu writing in her diary and calls her out, flustering Yu and making her worry that her secret thoughts might actually get read. They questions what Yu's even drawing in there, sounding puzzled by whatever she's doodled. She admits she was trying to write sorry in her diary, but messed up the characters, leaving her a little embarrassed as Excited looks on. Yu and Excited come across a spot where water has collected deep below, guessing the recent stretch of warm weather made it all pile up like this. Excited wonders why all this water is suddenly flooding out, and Yu guesses it might be because an old drainage system is still running. Yu points out they'll need to walk to avoid soaking their gear. And Excited brings up that finding clean water is their top job now. The girls carefully head down a busted metal staircase, squeezing past rushing water. It's risky every step, but staying put would just leave them wet and exposed. Yu has to take off her boots, forcing both of them to wade through the freezing water barefoot, and she instantly regrets it when her feet start to go numb. While Yu gets distracted by how blue the sky looks in the water, Excited warns her to watch her step for sharp debris since the flood might have brought in dangerous. Trying to lighten the mood, Yu suggests they watch the sky as they walk. She seems too chill for the slippery ground they're crossing. Excited gets annoyed and calls Yu out for not paying attention right after she was told to watch her step, clearly frustrated by the risky attitude. She keeps looking up anyway, half joking, that it's kind of wasted having such a nice day when they're stuck in a place like this. With the sky so blue, Yu admits today almost feels special. She hints she wants to treat it differently instead of just focusing on survival. The girls settle into their basic chores out in the open under a clear sky, using the time to do laundry and pause for a moment. Yu shivers and checks that her rope is secure, while Excited reminds her deeper water can be pretty dangerous here. She's careful not to lose her helmet while splashing around, and insists on keeping it on, even while she's only half dressed for laundry. Both girls kneel down together, washing their dirty clothes in the shallow water in the middle of what used to be a city. She looks over her outfit and sighs, realizing how dirty everything has gotten since they ended up stranded here. While they clean, Excited suddenly asks Yu why the sky is blue, making their small talk a little more thoughtful while Yu keeps scrubbing. Yu lies down and acts super lazy with the laundry, so Excited gets irritated and questions why Yu is slacking off now. Excited keeps pushing, still wanting to know why the sky is blue. All at once, Yu dashes ahead and jerks the rope, catching Excited off guard, so Excited yells at her for running out suddenly. She loses her balance and slips into the cold water, sending up a big splash and making their laundry day even messier. She bobs up from the water completely soaked, still clutching onto her clothes after the fall. Excited stares at Yu, confused about why she's dripping wet, but Yu just shrugs and says she slipped. Tripping but pumped, Yu holds up a big fish she grabbed while falling, telling Excited to check out what she found. They both freeze, shocked that the fish she caught is actually alive, something neither has seen in ages. They try to wrap their head around it, and even questions what a fish is supposed to be, watching it lie there without moving. Yu answers that it's a creature that lives in water, saying she's heard there used to be tons of fish before everything fell apart. They admit they thought nothing was left alive but humans, so finding this fish totally throws them off. Even though Yu isn't sure if it's safe, she finally admits she wants to eat the fish, since real food is almost impossible to find. They remember people used to eat fish, and figures they could try cooking this one, since it looks fresh enough. They both decide to wait until the laundry dries before roasting the fish, and Yu is already thinking ahead about eating it. With their clothes hanging by the ruins and the whole city feeling empty, catching a live fish now seems even more special. Their cleaned clothes are strung out to dry in the sun, and that little routine is one of the few things keeping life normal after all they've faced. As they wait, Yu starts to wonder what it must be like to actually live as a fish, imagining how it feels. Excited tries flapping their sleeve like a fin to see how a fish would move, and Yu still thinks it's wild that fins actually carry them around in water. Once the fish is cooked, Yu warns it's hot and hands it over, while Excited jumps in for the first bite. Excited takes a taste and finds the fish surprisingly good, which makes Yu curious, but also hope it's okay to eat. Yu decides she wants to try the fish too, but Excited jokes she shouldn't eat too much as Yu grabs a piece. The taste is totally new for Yu. She's never had anything like it, but it's actually not bad at all. After eating, Yu and Excited just lay back, fish bones between them, finally getting to feel full for once and just soaking it in. They see the laundry drying and realizes even just having clean clothes feels like a win in a place where that almost never happens. Yu jokes that the fish bones are refreshed now, but Excited just gives her a look, not really buying the idea that stripped bones can be called that. Looking at what's left of the fish, Yu starts thinking out loud about where it could have come from, getting stuck on the mystery. They figure the fish might have washed in from somewhere up above, since nothing else really makes sense for how it even survived. Sprawled out on the ground, Yu wonders if going a different direction might lead to more fish, and Excited just shrugs and says they'd eat any more they find. Right away, Yu wonders where the fish they ate for their last meal actually came from, since nothing seems normal here. She spots what could be a way up to a higher area, but hesitates because something feels wrong about it. Excited tries to figure out if there's any kind of bridge ahead, asking while Yu checks the area. They quickly realize there's a giant gap blocking their path, so there's no way to cross over. Yu gets frustrated by the dead end, wishing there was any way to get across. Then they spot something odd. A half-burned cigarette is still smoldering right there on the ground. Both move in for a closer look, and Yu points out that the cigarette is fresh, meaning someone else was here very recently. They realize fires don't just start on their own, so now it's clear there's another person close by. She quietly acknowledges it. They aren't alone out here anymore, and both are starting to feel on edge. They stiffen, understanding what this means, and waits to see who or what they might run into next. Yu sees fresh footprints and falls silent, while Excited, already tense, warns her to get her gun ready. Both know someone is in the area. Suddenly, a massive explosion shakes the whole place, leaving no time to react or hide. The blast throws debris everywhere and echoes through the empty factory, turning their tension into real danger. Yu and Excited duck for cover as the force of the explosion rattles them, scrambling to figure out what just hit. They get clipped by a chunk of debris, hisses in pain, but both stay on alert in case more follows. Overhead, buildings groan and crumble while loose rubble starts falling, pushing the girls to find anywhere safer fast. Even more debris pours out from the broken windows above, and they realize the explosion just made escaping way more difficult. Yu and Excited hold back together while bits keep falling, watching for whoever set off the blast or for the whole place to get worse. The windows above are gutted and dangerous, with glass and rubble still coming down, so they both know they can't stay much longer. As more debris crashes down from above, it's obvious staying put could get them crushed if they don't move soon. Chunks keep falling and the noise makes it clear. Yu and Excited have to stay alert since the risk of another collapse is real. With each burst of falling debris, they scan the ground for safer spots, hoping to dodge the next hit. As the smoke settles and things quiet down, they spot a hooded figure off to the side, watching from a distance. When the dust finally clears, a strange vehicle is parked nearby, and the hooded stranger comes closer, while Yu and Excited keep back. Excited freezes as the hooded figure steps out of the mist. Yu waits tensely, unsure if they should call out or hide. The stranger moves close enough to see, and Excited whispers that it really is another person, something rare out here. Nervously, Yu calls out and tells the newcomer to stop. The hooded person looks startled, pausing at her voice. They level their gun and checks if the stranger is hurt. The hooded person suddenly collapses, coughing from all the dust. The stranger apologizes, saying their voice is shaky because they haven't talked to anyone in a long time. She spots a detonator in the stranger's hand and asks if they set off the explosion that just happened. The hooded stranger admits to causing the blast, explaining they tried to make a bridge between buildings so they could get across the gap. Pulling back their hood, the stranger says they really didn't expect to run into anyone else here. Lighting a cigarette, the stranger tells Yu and Excited they're glad nobody got hurt by the blast. He introduces himself as Kanazawa and lets them know he's traveling and making a map as he goes. Kanazawa asks if Excited can lower their gun. Excited checks with Yu, then slowly lowers it. He admits he genuinely thought blowing up the rubble would help them cross, but Excited calls out that it almost got them all hurt. Yu shares their idea about making it across the crevice to find a higher path, and Kanazawa confirms that the vehicle parked nearby is his. Kanazawa looks at everything they've been through and seems like he wants to ask for something. He asks Yu and Excited for a favor, which catches both of them by surprise as they ask him what he needs. While Kanazawa gets ready to explain, the battered bridge over the crevice shows just how much work went into everyone meeting up here. She tries to drive the half-track up the slope, but the bulky thing keeps catching on chunks of concrete while Kanazawa watches and waits for their next move. Excited relaxes and tells Kanazawa it's fine. He can ride the vehicle since he helped make them a path. So now the group gets ready to climb. She points out how tough it is hauling the vehicle up the debris ramp, saying it's taking way more effort than they thought. They spot something ahead and calls for you to stop so they can check before moving any higher. Still catching his breath, Kanazawa drags a heavy box to help their climb, clearly struggling with the extra weight. Excited figures they can climb if they keep making a path out of rubble, and Kanazawa keeps bringing over more supplies to help. They brace a big slab in place for the next step, hoping it holds steady enough for the group to use. Once the main path is set, Excited and Kanazawa clear out broken bits while Yu waits and the half-track sits ready for another push. Kanazawa admits he blasted the ruins because he thought it'd be easier to climb, but now everyone sees the rubble just makes things trickier. Excited checks where Kanazawa's vehicle is now. He explains his motorcycle broke down, which is why he needed a ride with them. Together, they all push the heavy half-track up the debris, grunting with effort until Kanazawa cheers for one last big shove. Once they finally get the vehicle on top of the ledge, everyone pauses, totally worn out but relieved to have made it up. Wiping sweat from his face, Kanazawa jokes it's been ages since he worked so hard, and says the effort actually makes him feel alive. They repeat the word alive, sounding a bit surprised that all this struggle could actually feel good. She tries to joke that Chihi was saying earlier she doesn't even know if they're alive, while Chihi protests that she never actually said that. Kanazawa admits he doesn't know their names, so Chi tells him hers and introduces Yu to. That breaks the ice, and Kanazawa finally greets them properly. Yu lines up the pipe while her companion helps guide her, both making sure everything's set up just right. She works the stubborn valve until water finally comes out and fills their container, with her companion watching the flow start. Yu jots down a few notes from her spot by the pipes, while Excited hangs back, quietly thinking Yu is surprisingly good at this kind of work. She hefts the heavy water container, while Excited nods for her to pour it into the main tank so they can finally get going. They struggle to make some room on the small vehicle for their new companion, apologizing for how cramped everything is as they push gear around to fit everyone. Yu says the new map let them find fuel fast, and points out that both she and their new companion have ended up helping each other out today. The group looks up and realizes the old buildings here are packed in tight, so finding a straight path through this mess isn't going to be easy. He glances off and points out that nobody's left around here now, so whatever reason they had for hoping to see someone is gone. As they stare up at the rundown maze around them, Yu starts wondering if the people who lived here ages ago were the ones who actually built all this. Someone pushes back and explains this area was built by people even older than most folks assume, hinting that the city's history is more complicated. They squeeze their way through some tight alleyways in the shadows. A voice from the back calls out new directions, so Yu turns left and keeps pushing through the maze of empty streets. She drives the group forward as their headlights barely cut through the pitch-black tunnel up ahead. The ride takes them along a narrow path, jammed between abandoned buildings that lean in from both sides, making the space feel tight and claustrophobic. Looking up, they see walls and balconies packed just as tight overhead, so the place feels completely closed in. The group comes to a stop and looks at the heavy, broken buildings leaning over above them, realizing moving forward is going to be tough. She pauses at the handlebars, probably thinking through their next move. She points out that even though the giant tower always seems right there, no matter how far they travel, it never really gets any closer. Someone explains that all the roads keep twisting and dead-ending, so they have to backtrack or take detours just to make any progress. They turn to Yu, raising an eyebrow, and questions if she even knows where they are on the map at this point. Kanazawa, who's been handling the navigation, argues he does know their location, and says his map was right about the refueling station, pushing back on the doubts. Yu suddenly asks how Kanazawa made his map, shifting everybody's attention to where it really came from. He explains he charted the place by riding all over and climbing up buildings for a better view, showing just how well he knows the area. He adds that back when there was still a bridge, he managed to cover this whole level, which took a lot of work and time to finish his map. Excited wants a closer look at Kanazawa's map, but Yu warns them to be careful with it and points out she's been known to burn things before. They half-heartedly promises not to burn the map this time, and Kanazawa stays wary about letting them touch it. Kanazawa calmly tells the group the map means everything to him, and they all pause on a ledge surrounded by endless stacks of old buildings. He sits back and admits the map is all he has left, and everything he did in this place is wrapped up in it now. He tells the group that this map is all he has left, and without it, he'd have nothing. He says flat out that if he ever lost his map, he'd probably just die, and the group gets really quiet hearing how much it matters to him. They joke about burning Kanazawa's map, acting like it's no big deal just to see his reaction. Kanazawa panics at the idea, begging Excited to stop, while Yu watches, confused why anyone would mess with something so important. They admit they wanted to see if Kanazawa would really fall apart without his map, teasing him a little. She asks if Excited has to act like a demon, calling out how harsh the teasing is after Kanazawa opened up. He turns the question back and asks if you and Excited have anything just as important to them, sort of calling out that everyone has their own one thing. Yu tries to brush it off, saying nothing she owns is worth dying for, but Excited brings up her old diary and says it still matters. Excited accuses Yu of never letting go of her food rations even if she died, but Yu pushes back and says she's not like that. Yu looks ahead and starts giving directions, trying to get everyone moving after that heavy moment. They nod and steers the vehicle forward, following where Yu tells them to go. They all ride together through the next part of the ruins, letting the awkward tension slip away as they focus on the road. Their small ride moves deeper into long dark tunnels marked by broken pipes and signs as they search for a way through. The vehicle moves slowly under twisted metal and old buildings, and Kanazawa calls out that their stop isn't much farther now. The group stops in front of a huge structure. Yu stares up, suddenly realizing just how big this city really is compared to them. They look up at a wall of stacked blocks towering way overhead. For a second, nobody says anything, just overwhelmed by how massive it all feels. Their vehicle pulls up beside a round, endless-looking wall scattered with weird attachments. The group circles it on foot, saying little except how huge it is, amazed at the scale. Kanazawa says he'll keep mapping things if they manage to get above this wall, and Yu wonders what they'll find if they climb it. As they sit parked beside the huge curved wall, Excited points out how upbeat Kanazawa seems now, but he just shrugs and leaves it at that. As the lift rattles higher, one of them floats the hope that if they reach the top, there could finally be food and maybe even people living normal lives. Excited quickly shoots that down, reminding you nobody knows for sure. Everything past this floor is just another big unknown. Yu stares in shock and mutters amazing, while Excited just stands there frozen, both still taking in the fact that the platform actually tilted. She takes in just how high up they are now, staring over the edge and sounding a little overwhelmed by the sheer drop below. Nobody talks much. The higher they climb, the more the silence just makes their nerves worse. He brings up that while places for food are pretty much gone, there are still a few spots where they can find water. He brings up the idea that maybe things work better higher up. Maybe some old systems do anyway, but admits it's honestly just a guess at this point. Excited quietly checks on Yu, but nobody really knows what to say, since even their best plans could fall apart in a second. They notices something's wrong with Yu, and tries to see if she's okay. Yu grabs Excited's arm for comfort, but quickly says she's fine, not letting anyone see how much the stress is getting to her. Excited tries to call out Yu's shaky hands, wondering if she's afraid of heights, but Yu just clings tighter and shrugs it off like she's not bothered. The view outside is huge and open, but Excited can't help noticing there isn't even any wire mesh or barrier to stop someone from falling. He guesses whoever built this place maybe skipped the safety mesh to save on cost or supplies keeping people safe. Just wasn't a big deal for them. They get more worried, asking what happens if the lift tilts, wondering if a thin railing would actually save them, or if they'd just drop straight down. Yu tries to calm Excited by insisting the platform won't tilt so easily, but then a sudden loud jolt hits and the whole lift suddenly shifts sideways. Excited panics, yelling that the lift really is tilting, and all three of them scramble to keep from sliding off. The whole lift jolts and slams to a stop with a bang, and as everyone scrambles in panic, Excited yells at Kanazawa to stop the platform. Once the shaking stops, Yu says she's okay, but Kanazawa suspects the lift's caught up on something. Excited checks around to see if anyone actually got hurt. They ask if they can do anything themselves to get the lift running again, thinking maybe they still have a shot at fixing this mess. All at once, Kanazawa sees the map sliding toward the edge, and everyone realizes they could lose the only thing showing them where to go. Yu and Excited freeze as Kanazawa lunges for the map, both of them on edge, afraid it'll fall and leave them totally lost. Kanazawa tries to grab the map before it slips off the edge, but Yu watches in panic, and Excited just calls her out for letting it happen. Still hanging on the edge, Kanazawa keeps a tight grip on the map and the ledge, making it clear that if he slips, both he and the map are gone. The empty seat where Kanazawa was just sitting is now left behind, and you can tell his absence hits Yu as she glances over. They watch helplessly as the map finally slips away and drops down the shaft, and Kanazawa can only sigh as he sees the pages scatter far below. Sounding defeated, Kanazawa tells the others to let go of him, clearly ready to stop fighting now that the only map is gone. But Yu grips Kanazawa and refuses to let him fall, making it clear she isn't going to let him just give up on everything. Kanazawa wonders why the place isn't built with more safety in mind, and Excited just shrugs it off, guessing the builders skipped the mesh to save on resources. He just lays there and flat out says life has no meaning because everyone dies anyway, and Yu and Excited can only sit there in awkward silence. Yu wonders if they can repair the broken part, and the group decides they need to check the rail themselves to see what's actually possible. The group rides up on an old lift while the machinery groans and rattles, so now they're leaving the lower level behind and heading somewhere higher. She admits she was nervous about the lift breaking down. If it really got stuck, they would be trapped. But she's glad it kept working and they aren't stranded. Once the ride ends, darkness settles around them. With so little light, even Yu feels the chill of everything unknown waiting in the shadows. Excited catches Kanazawa staring at the floor, still caught up in his earlier mood and barely reacting to anything. Ew. And Excited step up to Kanazawa's side, under the glare of a bright beam, hoping he'll acknowledge them. But he barely moves. She squints up at the overhead lamp and talks about it, almost searching for a reason to be hopeful as she scans the dark ceiling. They quietly points out something far off, nudging the others to notice a change none of them expected. The three of them gather and stare out into the city, drawn in by a sudden glow that demands their full attention. Suddenly, streetlights snap on, casting everything in a bright, buzzing light. All three take in the view, wondering what kind of life might be waiting out there. While the city shines in front of them, Yu glances over and notices Kanazawa still lost in his thoughts, a bit apart from the rest of the group. Yu pulls out a piece of fruit-flavored candy and offers it to Kanazawa, finally reaching him with a small, simple act of kindness. She admits she doesn't really know if moments like this mean anything big, but thinks showing a little kindness still matters. He, still distant but softening, reflects that even in hard times, little good surprises can show up now and then. They all look out across the city sparkling below, realizing even here, there are things worth seeing if you pay attention. They keep sharing their food while taking in the lit-up city. Nobody argues or complains. It's just everyone, finally quiet and together. Kanazawa gets up and lets them know he'll go north from here. The group knows this is where they split up, at least for now. He promises to draw another map as he heads off alone, trying to give some purpose to the goodbye. As Kanazawa disappears down the road, Yu wonders aloud if they'll ever see him again. His absence makes the city seem even bigger and emptier. Yu notices the empty spot where Kanazawa sat and points out to Excited that the truck has space again, suggesting they get back on the move. With Kanazawa gone, Yu and Excited drive the truck across a bridge, choosing to explore the part of the city with the brightest lights, hoping for something better up ahead. Right away, Excited and Yu get into it over why the last photo came out way too bright, each blaming the other for messing with the settings. They both know wandering at night would be trouble, so they hurry to pack up and head out while there's still plenty of daylight. They climb into their ride, settling in and bracing for whatever the city has in store once they leave the safety of their shelter. The machine starts up with a loud rattle, and Yu and Excited roll onto the battered road, leaving the old building behind. Their truck rumbles along a narrow bridge high in the air, weaving between crumbling buildings and empty streets as the city just stretches on around them. Excited takes the camera from Yu and promises, probably a bit too quickly, not to mess it up, but Yu doesn't look convinced. Right away, Excited turns the camera out the window and tries another shot, not even waiting for the truck to get up to speed. The vehicle rolls deeper into the city, bobbing over cracked asphalt as huge, empty buildings surround them on all sides. Leaning out, Excited tries to snap a photo that shows just how empty and strange everything looks compared to the world they used to know. Excited flips through the camera roll and points out the last picture, sparking another round of teasing back and forth as the city slides by outside. They check the newest shot, but it's all blurry again, which leaves Yu frustrated at the camera and herself for not catching it sooner. Yu tells Excited how to turn the dial to focus the image, so Excited adjusts it, glad to have a real tip for once. This time, the camera finally captures a sharp view, and Excited grins, happy they finally got it right and snapped a proper picture of the city. As their bike rolls across a narrow bridge, they both complain that Kanazawa just handed them the camera, but never actually explained how to use it. Excited remembers Kanazawa saying goodbye, passing them the camera as a thank you for sharing food. He mentions how even the word for camera comes from English, which reminds Yu how little they actually know about the world before. Kanazawa had called it a photograph device, but when Yu asks if camera works too, Kanazawa shrugs and says any word is fine. The girls laugh about how even the words for old things get mixed up now. Messing with the dial some more, Excited guesses this thing really is ancient, and every button on it is still a mystery. Even though Kanazawa said they could use the camera any way they want, Excited still feels unsure and hesitates, until Yu calls out and snaps them back to the moment. They try another shot over the edge of the truck, still hoping to catch something interesting as the empty city rolls past. While Excited snaps a photo, they spot a weird pillar or statue outside, a new kind of find that stands out among the plain ruins. They go through the new pictures, stopping at the one of the statue, and wonders what its story is, since nothing around here ever makes sense. They calls Yu over to check the shot, but Yu points out the image is still a blurry mess. The camera troubles start to get on both their nerves. Excited pushes Yu to take a picture together, but Yu insists now isn't the time. She's too distracted behind the wheel to mess around. Her gaze snaps up as she suddenly notices something big right in their path that she missed before. She slams on the brakes, and both girls jerk forward when they realize the road ahead is suddenly blocked. A heavy metal pipe crashes down just in time to block their path. Yu manages to stop before hitting it, while Excited hugs the camera tight and stares. The sudden jolt nearly knocks the camera from Excited's hands, rattling both girls as they catch their breath. Above them, broken wires dangle and a platform tilts, making it clear how risky and unstable this whole place really is. The girls drive their little truck across the stark white ground, weaving under a mess of wires as the city wall looms over them. Yu aches from banging into the pipe and ends up squished under it, while Excited slumps behind her, both still rattled from the crash that nearly got them. Excited calls Yu out for spacing out when she should have been driving, annoyed that Yu keeps getting distracted even when danger is all around them. It gives Yu a clumsy pat on the head, but Yu just sits there too, out of it to react after getting hit. Excited leans over and yanks Yu free from where she's wedged, and Yu yelps as her arm gets pulled out from under the pipe. They decides to hang on to the camera and gets moving first, leaving Yu behind to complain from the truck. Yu grumbles that Excited is being kind of heartless, but Excited just ignores it and focuses on the road ahead. Their forms look tiny as they pause beside a huge city wall, the truck almost swallowed up by the size of everything. Even though it feels overwhelming, they keep going. Their little truck clatters across a bridge, and Yu jokes about wishing Excited had a big heart like all these giant statues, which makes Excited stop for a second. Excited spots something wrong with the camera shutter and quickly blames Yu for messing it up, which Yu admits probably happened when the truck hit a statue. She quietly checks the camera on her own, poking at the buttons and hoping she can fix whatever's wrong. Without needing to say she messed up, she mentions out loud she's finally starting to figure out what the dial does, and Excited checks to see if anything else is still off. As they drive over the bridge, one tries to get the other to explain what's bothering them with the camera, but just gets shut down. The truck bumps through tight arches inside a massive building, and everything goes quiet after Yu refuses to talk about the camera problem. They roll farther into the city, between tall, shadowy buildings, and the empty streets just make the place feel even more abandoned. Stopping the truck for a minute, the girls agree if they head out now, they'll probably reach that big shiny building up ahead pretty soon. Yu admits she grabbed way more than she needed, and Excited points out how silly that was, but neither of them actually seems upset about it. Excited complains that Yu took way too many pictures of those statues. Yu just shrugs it off, pointing out they don't have to worry about running out of space. They isn't totally buying Yu's answer about unlimited shots and keeps a close eye on the camera, both wondering if they're missing something. They both stare at the camera, scanning the screen to figure out how many pictures they really have left before it runs out. She claims the number on the display is the count of remaining shots and quietly admits it's been going down the whole time. They squint at the counter and sees 520,000 left, way more than they thought. So finding extra film isn't going to be a real problem. They take stock of their food, and Yu figures their supplies can stretch through a month if they ration it between the two of them. They brush off the camera worry and joke that their bigger problem is actually food, not photos. Yu finds a pack marked cheese flavor, and Excited wonders what cheese is, since neither of them has tried it before. She lays on the floor while they talk about how food always disappears for good once it's eaten. She quietly admits someday the whole city and even the stone statues will vanish too, which makes everything feel even more temporary. They wish the statues and their memories could last at least as photos, but both go silent as things get a little heavier. She brings up a camera trick she found some time back, thinking maybe it could help them save something real from their journey. She turns knobs on the camera, trying to find the right setting and hoping it might help them keep memories from slipping away. Excited tells Yu to stop and hold still for a quick photo, so Yu freezes in place, not sure what to expect, but going along with it anyway. They stand close together as the camera snaps a shot, marking their place in the empty city, even if the world around them keeps fading. Yu and Excited cross through a forest of giant stone pillars, stopping to puzzle over why someone would put so many huge statues in one place. As they move further in, Excited wonders aloud if this place is a temple, making both of them think these ruins might have been really important long ago. Yu guesses that, if it's a temple, maybe this is where people came to connect with the gods, and the whole scene starts to feel pretty mysterious. Watching the towering statues, Excited brings up the idea these could actually be gods themselves, leaving both of them even more unsure what to believe. Yu stops, stumped for words, not sure how to explain what a god even is, while Excited waits for some kind of answer. After a pause, Yui admits she honestly has no idea what counts as a god, and the empty silence just hangs in the air. She leans over a stone ledge, thinking about their conversation as the size of everything around them starts to feel overwhelming. She stands at the top of the stairs and stares down at Excited, both of them frozen in place as the last patch of light fades and they realize how. The two spot some old writing that reveals the place was built about 400 years ago as a spot to worship 3 different gods. Facing a giant carved stone, they decide this definitely feels like a temple. Adding weight to the clues they found so far, she reads text that says this whole temple is meant to copy a place called Sukhavati, so even these ruins are really just a replica. She squints at the strange writing, trying to sound out the old symbols as she stands close to the cool stone wall. An inscription talks about gods lighting up the afterworld, and Yu tries to wrap her head around what that really means. They listen, but admits the whole message is still confusing, so both end up wondering if any of this actually explains what gods are. She messes with their lantern, nervous that it's losing power, each clicking sound making her more worried as the darkness thickens. Her lantern starts to sputter out for real, so Yu quickly checks the fuel. Everything freezes for a second while she realizes they might be stuck in the dark. She starts to panic, suddenly remembering she might have forgotten to refuel the lantern. Right as their last bit of light goes dim, they stand frozen, swallowed by total darkness, finally noticing how quickly the light is gone. Turning in place with a shaky voice, Excited calls out for Yu, making it clear they're lost and can't see a thing. They just stands there in the pitch black, realizing how dangerous it is for them to get separated in a place like this. Still trapped in the dark, Excited tries to call out and pick a direction, while Yu answers quietly, trying to help them find each other by sound alone. Excited starts to worry what would happen if they stayed separated, showing how the deep darkness is starting to really mess with both of them. She collapses down and wonders out loud if the afterlife is just this nothing but endless empty darkness. Letting that thought sink in. Still apart, Yu bumps right into Excited's face while feeling her way through the dark, making them both jump, but at least now they know they're together again. Suddenly, the lantern flickers back on, surprising both of them and snapping the darkness away so they can actually see each other again. Now that their eyes have adjusted, they see towering structures and machines all around, an artificial city stretching out in front of them. Looking up, they spot one huge pillar carved to look like a face, staring over the landscape like a giant statue keeping watch. Yu and Excited end up sitting together, both stuck in silence as they try to make sense of how fast everything flipped from terror to comfort. As they stare into the empty dark pond, one of them quietly wonders if maybe the whole point of a god is just to light things up. The girls look tiny against all the huge metal shapes and fake plants that fill the space, staying close but still feeling lost in this odd place. Yu points out how even the floor glows, realizing everything around them is fake, while Excited says it's all just light bouncing off surfaces, not real life. They reach out and touches one of the metal leaves, proving to both of them that these plants are just cold, hard metal and nothing alive. Yu calls Excited over, urging them to check out something new she spotted among all the fake stuff, hoping for something real. She points to some fish swimming under the glass, but when Excited looks closer, they realize even the fish are just more metal fakes with no life at all. Yu wonders if any of these weird metal plants could actually be food, but Excited tells her to just try it herself if she's curious. After checking around, Yu admits it's just a locked-up stone statue, so she feels let down because, like everything else here, it's not the real thing. Excited warns Yu not to say anything she shouldn't, or she might get in trouble, but Yu shrugs it off since they already knocked over a statue before. Yu finally admits out loud that it really is only a stone statue, and whatever hope they had for something special here is gone. The girls glance around the fake pond, surrounded by lifeless copies of nature, realizing there's nothing living or real for them to find. When they look up, they see giant beams and tangled wires crisscrossing everywhere, along with odd floating lights, which just makes the whole city feel even more fake. Yu tries to compare their own food to everything in this strange world, but she realizes it doesn't help her figure out the place any better. They wonder why anyone would design something so empty, and Excited jokes that even the gods are just more fakes in a place like this. Both of them sit quietly, coming to terms with the idea that nobody knows what happens after this world, so any idea of an afterlife is probably just a guess. Excited brings up how you wondered earlier if the afterlife was really just never-ending darkness, reminding both of them how uncertain everything feels. They guess maybe that's why people build statues and keep lights burning to avoid thinking about the scary unknown and to feel a little safer. Yu tells Excited it wasn't the lights or statues that helped her. Instead, seeing Chi-chan again in the darkness was what truly gave her comfort. Excited suddenly jumps up, teasing Yu and saying maybe she really is a god if she can make someone feel that safe, making Yu stop and think. Yu tries giving her food to Excited like an offering, joking about treating her like a god, but it just ends up feeling kind of silly to both of them. She looks out over the maze of artificial buildings and jokes about actually being a god, but Excited immediately shuts that down, Please support the official release.
Chito jumps at a sudden noise, blurting out that it's just the wind, but even she doesn't fully believe it. Yu looks jumpy beside her, and neither girl feels settled. Yu tries to make things interesting by betting food on their next round, but Chito quickly insists the win doesn't count, making sure it's a fair game. Chito admits defeat, handing over one of her precious food bars to Yu. Yu grins, clearly happy she got an easy win and some extra food for later. Right after claiming her prize, Yu nods off, leaving Chito awake and keeping a cautious eye on things as their camp sits exposed above the quiet city. Chito watches Yu for a moment, tired but on edge, then finally gives in and tries to get some sleep herself as the night air turns colder. The city below is dead quiet, the only signs of life coming from the girls tucked away above. For a while, everything feels still and almost peaceful. Suddenly, Chito wakes up with a jolt, feeling the ground start to shake. She sits up fast, alarmed as the world shudders around her. Realizing they're in an earthquake, Chito calls out for Yu as the rooftop rocks under them. The unstable platform and wobbling city make her panic. She scans the area, wide-eyed and scared, trying to spot Yu and figure out if her friend is in trouble during the chaos. She shouts for Yu, more worried now, as something doesn't look right and their makeshift sleeping spot seems like it might give way. Chito looks up in shock from a stack of giant blocks and points out that Yu suddenly looks massive towering over her, while Yu casually checks if she's okay. As the ground trembles harder, Chito struggles to keep her balance on the shaky rooftop. Yu warns her not to move, suddenly recognizing just how risky everything feels. Chito yells for Yu to stop moving because she's about to fall, trying to warn her how risky it is as the slab teeters even more. She flails her arms, stumbling as she tries to stay upright, but she keeps slipping on the unstable slab. Yu looks over and can't figure out why Chito is flapping around so much, missing how much danger Chito's in as she tries to talk through the chaos. Chito tries telling Yu to help her off the slab without making things worse, but Yu just cuts her off, acting like it's nothing and shouting for her attention. Yu suddenly bursts out laughing at the whole crazy scene, thinking it's hilarious, while Chito gets even angrier and yells back. The platform rocks even more under them. She, fuming now, shouts that Yu better remember this as she loses her balance and starts to slip right off the slab. She falls, tumbling downward into darkness, surrounded by bubbles as she plunges deeper and deeper. As Chito sinks, she realizes she's underwater, and the place where she fell from is fading out of sight. Suddenly, Chito notices a huge fish below her as she keeps going down, realizing she's not the only thing in the water now. She reaches for the giant fish and grabs on, struggling to steady herself. She's wide-eyed, not sure if this is actually happening or just another dream. She finds herself sitting alone on what looks like a giant fish in a wide, surreal sea, realizing she might be looking at that ocean she's only heard about. Sitting on the fish, Chito starts thinking it looks familiar, but then tells herself it can't be the same one she saw before. A huge fish with Chito's face bursts out of the water, spraying everywhere and sending a tiny frantic Yu splashing nearby. Chito gapes at the giant fish that looks like Yu, barely processing any of this, before the real Yu suddenly pops up beside her in the water too. She looks over at a fish skeleton in the water, realizing that the weird fish from her dream has already been eaten and picked clean. Chito sits frozen, taking it all in as the weird dream continues. The giant fish with Yu's face stares at Chito and says eating her is just what fish do now, which makes Chito freak out and yell for her to stop. Fish Yu swings close and opens her mouth wide right in front of Chito, so Chito is stuck staring straight into the threat of getting swallowed. She freezes in place, barely able to whisper to herself that she's about to get eaten by this giant fish version of Yu. She sits there panicking, the worry written all over her face as she waits to see what the giant fish will do. Her eyes go wide as it hits her how bad this is, totally caught up in the fear of the moment. Then, the scene jumps back to silence, just the empty ruined city, like there's no sign a dream ever happened. Chito jolts awake in a panic from her nightmare, while Yu sleeps stretched out next to her, not bothered at all. She sighs, looking annoyed but also relieved it was only a dream, as Yu keeps sleeping like nothing's wrong. Yu, still stuck in her own dream, mumbles that she can't eat anymore, totally clueless about Chito's stress a minute ago. Fed up with the weird dream and Yu's sleep-talking, Chito pushes something toward her and tells her to just eat a rock. She grabs her canteen, twists it open, and finally goes for some real water after all that nonsense. She gulps down water and starts feeling grounded again, grateful the nightmare is over. She tries to describe the dream, feeling overwhelmed by how much weirdness hit her all at once. She sits up, enjoying her water and finally feeling some relief after that strange dream, while Yu just mumbles nonsense and stays sprawled out on the floor. Right away, Chito grumbles that it would be way better if their shelter actually had a roof, since they're stuck in the rain again and barely getting any real cover. Chito tells Yu to cover their luggage with a sheet to keep it dry, and Yu calls out a quick agreement from inside the shelter. The girls and their bags squeeze under a patched-together scrap structure, crouching low to keep out of the worst of the rain. She pulls off her jacket, showing it's totally soaked through, so their makeshift shelter hasn't saved them from getting wet. As Chito tries to hang their jackets to dry, Yu's attention drifts and she finds a stick, focusing more on little distractions than on warming up. Their jackets hang there dripping, making it clear just how much rain they've had to put up with. Yu notices out loud that this kind of heavy rain hasn't hit in ages, and Chito nods, both kind of resigned as they settle in. Rain beats down hard on the metal, with Yu sitting back, pretty amazed by the loud echo bouncing around their shelter. The steady noise from the rain fills the quiet inside. The girl's attention drifts from their wet clothes to listening to all the different sounds bouncing around. She gets restless and starts tapping everything nearby just to make more noise, teasing Chito with her antics while Chito halfway ignores her. She thumps the stick on anything that makes a sound, but Chito quickly tells her to quit it, not in the mood to listen to all that banging. Chito explains the echoes happen because the place is hollow, but Yu just keeps poking at things, not bothered at all. Yu keeps at it, impressed by how empty things sound. Chito is clearly over the racket, sighing as Yu tries to make it even louder. She holds the stick tighter and keeps drumming on the metal, liking the weird noises that come back at her. She swings harder and makes even more noise, messing around and sticking her tongue out to push the joke further. Finally, Chito tells Yu to put her energy into actually doing something, like getting water. Yu drops the stick and heads off to deal with the rain instead. She gripes about how fast Chito starts bossing her around, but still goes to grab one of the big cans for collecting rainwater. She finds a steady drip, sets down her can underneath it, and gets ready to catch whatever water she can. She stares at the drops as each one splashes into her can, clearly not loving the chore but getting it done anyway. Now holding her own helmet, Yu sits and waits in the echoing shelter while Chito takes off her helmet, maybe planning to use it for something else. One drop taps onto a helmet, making a sharp sound that echoes through the empty metal room. Chito asks why Yu wants her helmet, sounding wary. Yu just grabs it, acting like she's got a new idea. They set both helmets out under separate leaks, and each one starts making its own tapping rhythm as the water hits. Yu jokes that maybe all these different drips actually sound pretty nice mixed together. Chito doesn't look convinced, but agrees anyway. Noticing so many leaks, Yu decides to grab more containers. Chito just lets her go along with the plan, watching as Yu spreads stuff around. She places a metal canister right under one leak and starts letting it collect water with a loud ping. She stands close, again setting another can under a drip and watching each splash as the can slowly fills up. She props a thick book under another leak, curious to hear the sound the water makes hitting the cover. She shows off the stack of cans she's found, telling Chito there are a ton of leaks to use, and now she's set on catching every drip she can. With each new container set out, the helmets and cans fill the space with tapping and splashing, making the empty shelter sound like a busy, clattering room. Rain keeps falling outside, rushing through gaps and broken pillars, while inside the girls keep playing around with their water-catching gear and listening to the noise each drip makes. The sounds echo off old wreckage and scattered pipes, turning the lost crash site into a place filled with all kinds of random plinks and thuds. Both girls glance up and listen closer, caught by how the drips and taps start to blend together like a messy but steady beat. Chito tries to put the feeling into words. Being surrounded by so many different drips makes the whole space feel wrapped up in one giant layer of noise. Yu laughs and guesses it could count as music, and Chito mulls it over, hesitantly repeating the thought like she can't decide if it fits. She settles in, tapping her pencil against her notebook in time with the drips, unable to resist getting drawn into all the odd rhythms. She scribbles out dots and lines to follow the patterns, finding that some of the sounds repeat in a way that almost connects the whole clutter of cans. After setting up so many cans and helmets, both girls realize they might have gotten a bit carried away, but neither really wants to stop listening yet. Suddenly the tapping stops. Yu notices the rain is over, and Chito looks relieved as the shelter finally turns quiet. One last raindrop falls outside, snapping the silence and closing out their little makeshift concert. Yu calls out to Chito, breaking the silence after the last drop. Chito turns, snapped out of her own thoughts by how quickly the noise faded away. Standing just out of the rain, Yu wonders if things were always this quiet. Chito nods along, both of them feeling the emptiness settle in after all the noise. She looks out at the ruins and says it's silent now. The girls both notice how empty everything feels again after the rain's short-lived music fades. Chito worries that if they can't fix their ride soon, they may be stuck here for good. But Yu doesn't really seem bothered. She brushes off Chito's concern about being stranded and acts like it wouldn't be the end of the world, even if they're stuck. She tries to cheer Chito up by calling her over to show something, but soon gives up, thinking their vehicle's pretty much hopeless. Suddenly, Yu spots something moving high above them and reacts with surprise. It's a plane flying overhead. Chito sees it too and asks if that's really an airplane, while Yu insists she look closer since it's important. A stranger nearby yells for their attention, excitedly pointing out the flying plane above and drawing both girls' focus. Both Chito and Yu now realize someone else is here interacting with them, and the mood shifts as they size up this new person. Rushing over, the stranger stumbles and falls hard to the ground, letting out a sharp cry as she lands. Chito and Yu freeze as the girl lies still for a second, both of them unsure if she's really hurt or just embarrassed. Yu wonders out loud if that fall knocked her out for good, but Chito thinks she's probably just fine. Deciding they can't just watch, Chito tells Yu they should go check on the girl and see if she needs help. Chito leads the way as they walk over to the stranger lying on the ground, watching to see if she'll get up. The new girl groans and pushes herself up, clearly in pain from that spill, but showing she's tough enough to get back on her feet. She straightens her glasses and sits up, still a bit disoriented but managing to pull herself together after the fall. Looking right at Chito and Yu, she proudly announces her success, though both girls just look confused about what she means. She explains that the plane they saw actually flew, so her risky work finally paid off, at least in her eyes. The girl holds up a homemade gadget or part, showing off the thing that helped her get the plane to take off. Pulling out her notebook, she says she has to write this moment down so nobody can argue the flight didn't happen. Chito and Yu cut right to the chase, asking straight up who she even is and why she's out here. She introduces herself, and Yu starts to, so now all three finally know each other's names. Chito steps forward, trying to figure out if what this girl called a flight is really what everyone thinks it is. Yu points to the plane moving across the sky, and both girls realize this is exactly what the stranger was so excited about. They can't help staring. The girl with glasses calmly confirms she actually built that airplane, repeating her claim for emphasis. She looks at Chito and Yu, saying it's odd to run into new people at a time like this, but maybe it happened for a reason. She adds that the timing feels almost right, as though meeting them now was meant to happen. As they walk along together, the girl guesses their own vehicle broke down and offers to help fix it if she's able. She tells Chito and Yu that she'll need their help with something too, so now they're making a deal to work together. She wants to know where they're headed, and the new girl just tells her to keep going. It's not much farther now. As the group keeps moving, Yu realizes they never even asked this girl's name, so she blurts out the question while they walk. The girl finally introduces herself as Ishi, settling the awkwardness and making each person in the group known. Ishi unlocks a heavy gate, signaling she's letting Chito and Yu deeper into her territory. The three step through the open gate and into a big fenced compound, showing just how much space Ishi controls here. Chito and Yu take in the massive old buildings and tangled machines all around, realizing the place is packed with leftovers from before. They all pause, looking up at huge metal frames and hanging wires overhead, clearly struck by the size and emptiness of the place. Ishi explains to them that this used to be an Air Force base, which makes sense with all the hangars and old equipment lying around. Everywhere they look, there are broken plane parts and wide, empty stretches, making it obvious Ishi's spent a lot of time living alone out here. Ishi mentions she's been able to last this long, thanks to leftover water, power, and tons of machine scraps, basically surviving off what was left behind. Chito and Yu are surprised anyone could live here at all, so Ishi adds there was a food plant nearby at one point, but it's not working anymore. With the power and water pretty much gone, Ishi makes it clear she can't stick around much longer, so time is running out for all of them. As they walk in deeper, Ishi points out the spot where the flying plane crashed, tying their meeting back to her failed flight attempt. Chito asks if it's safe to leave the damaged plane outside, and Ishi says it was just a test run, so she's not worried about it. She then tells them there's actually a finished plane hidden inside, giving Chito and Yu a reason to stick around and help. Standing in front of her main project, Ishi comes out and asks Chito and Yu to help her finish the working plane. Yu is all for it and says she'll pitch in on repairs, so now the group is locked in on making the plane work. Chito wants to know what Ishi plans to do after the plane's ready, raising the question of what comes next if they pull this off. Ishi answers she's going to use the plane to finally get out of the city, showing this whole plan is really about escape. Chito and Yu haul on a heavy part while Ishi shouts adjustments, trying to get everything lined up so the build can keep moving. They push their vehicle closer and call up to Ishi, who takes charge from above and gets them in position for the next steps. Under the huge plane, Chito and Yu are surprised by how big it is, but realize there's only space for one person to ride. Ishi explains the plane can go pretty far if she adds another fuel tank, but that doesn't solve the problem of it only carrying one person. Their cart rattles across the empty hangar, while the half-finished plane towers over them, making the whole job look even bigger as they start to work. Chito calls out to Ishi while they both adjust the cockpit parts, and Yu hangs back to watch their progress. Struggling with some of the assembly, Chito admits it's pretty wild. They're even trying to build a plane just because the right scraps happen to be here. Ishi says having the equipment helped, but admits something bigger pushed her into trying this. Working under the wing, Ishi hesitates, thinking hard before sharing her real reason for taking this risk. She finally shares that old documents and blueprints gave her the idea and steps needed to actually try building a plane herself. Yu stumbles across a working shower and goes wild over the hot water, while Chito can't believe they've scored such a rare find. After a soak, the girls agree that getting to use the hot bath makes Ishi seem pretty decent, which reminds them that even Kanazawa turned out okay too. She points out that not every survivor they meet will be helpful like that, so they still have to be careful with strangers. Yu argues that people are supposed to help each other, still hoping kindness is possible even if the world is a mess. Chito teases Yu for talking up teamwork when she didn't actually help with the plane repairs, but Yu just jokes right back and keeps things light. The girls agree that sharing a hot bath, after all they've been through, is one bit of comfort that really matters right now. Afterwards, they thank Ishii for the bath and accept potato-based ration blocks, which Ishii explains are their basic food now. They eat the rations, and even though the meal is small, Chito is surprised that it actually tastes pretty good. Chito asks if Ishii really lives in such a messy room and wants to know about the record Ishii mentioned before. She points out the walls covered in blueprints and explains she gathered old plane designs from around the base to help her figure this out. She explains the base might have once kept records about plane technology, not just as a place for people to live. She says some of the blueprints are simple, but others are so advanced she can't even follow them. Chito and Yu look at all the blueprints, realizing it's basically a whole history of plane ideas stacked across the room. She asks if the plane Ishii built is her own design, and Ishii says it's really a mashup of lots of different plans she found. Yu admits she's worried the plane could crash, but Ishii says she had to use whatever parts were available, so there wasn't much choice. Looking worn out, Ishii tells the girls time is running short and that they really have to get the plane finished soon. She adds that food is running out, and if she doesn't finish the plane before winter, she might never get another chance to leave. Ishii admits she could die trying, but tells Chito doing nothing and staying stuck feels even worse, so it's worth the risk to try anyway. She tells the girls if she can't get the plane finished soon, she'll just end up dying here with everything else that's falling apart. She points out the day is almost over and suggests they head to the empty warehouse nearby to get some rest, since there's nowhere else to go. Before they try to sleep, Yu starts thinking out loud about what life might be like beyond the city walls. She admits hanging around and doing nothing is no safer than risking the flight, since staying stuck here could still mean they all die anyway. Chito wonders out loud if they can eat any more, since they're trying to stretch out the rest of their food. Yu and Chito talk about whether there's anything left to eat, but Ishii points out they've really run out unless they get lucky searching the west plant. The girls realize they've got their next move picked out. Ishii promises a quick map once they're done, making it official that west is now their goal. Sitting around with Ishii and checking their food, Chito realizes they've actually never asked Ishii where she plans to go after this. She assures them she's not about to leave without thinking things through. She wants to make her next steps count, not just disappear into the ruins. She shows them an old route map she found at the base, pointing out that people used to fly out to nearby cities. She wants to use that old air route as her guide. She tells them she once used a telescope on a clear day and actually spotted another city across the water. She's sure it's still out there. Chito and Yu talk about the idea of a neighboring city and wonder what kind of life might still be left in a place like that. Ishii reminds them that they won't know what's out there unless they go take a look for themselves, putting the decision in their hands. The girls call out to Ishii as she stands by the plane, getting ready for her risky flight out of the city. Ishii admits she has spent all this time alone fixing up the plane, and now that the girls ask, says she's ready to finally leave. Getting set in the cockpit, Ishii lets them know she's grateful to have met Yu and Chito before heading out, making this goodbye feel real for her. She points out that it's not just about airplanes or machines for Ishii. A big part is having someone here to see her go. Ishii explains that having witnesses for her departure matters most, since it proves she really tried, and this moment will be remembered. Yu jokes about Ishii being famous as the last aviator, and Ishii admits she really might be remembered that way someday. As she gets ready, Ishii quietly sits with the thought that she could be the last person to ever fly a plane. Inside the cockpit, Ishii flips switches and checks each control. Yu and Chito watch her go through the startup while the engine starts to whine. She holds the controls, thinking that if this is the final takeoff, it might still mean something to someone later. The propeller twists into motion and the plane jerks forward down the runway while Yu and Chito stand to one side and watch with worried faces. With the engine roaring and the rudder shifting for the last systems check, Ishii's plane is finally set for takeoff, and the girls know this is go time. She calls out that the rudder works, confirming there's nothing left to check before she's ready to launch. She gives a thumbs up from the cockpit window, so Yu and Chito see she's ready to start rolling. From behind the glass, Yu and Chito wave back at Ishii, both unable to hide their nerves as the plane sits on the runway. The plane's wheels start their run, building up speed as Ishii goes all in on taking off. The aircraft picks up even more speed, rattling hard along the old runway while the drone of the engine grows. She steers the plane fast down the strip, the propeller blazing and making it clear there's no way to turn back now. Her plane barrels toward the end of the runway, leaving the cramped hangar behind for open sky. Ishii's face is tense and focused as the wheels finally leave the ground. Down below, Yu and Chito can only watch and hope with every bit of them. The plane lifts off, shaky at first, with its shadow racing across the ground as it rises away from the city ruins. As Ishii's plane speeds down the runway, the huge walls of the city whip by, and she heads straight for the final gap out. From behind the glass, Yu and Chito watch wide-eyed as Ishii's plane makes it into the air, its engine noise trailing off behind her. The plane turns away from the hangar and weaves between chunks of broken city, aiming for clear sky ahead. She clings to the controls, tense but steady, as the plane climbs, and the ground quickly drops away behind her. Yu can't help blurting out how amazing it is that Ishii finally got off the ground, while Chito is still frozen in disbelief. Suddenly, the plane swerves off balance and starts wobbling, making both girls nervous as things start going wrong fast. One wing smashes against a tall wreck, snapping off and sending the plane crashing down. Everything goes quiet as Yu and Chito realize what just happened. The girls stand in shock, struggling to take in how fast things fell apart right after seeing real hope for Ishii. Yu spots something moving out in the distance and calls Chito over. Through their viewer, they both see Ishii floating down on a parachute, alive. As Ishii floats among the broken pieces, she admits to herself the plane was a failure, and all her effort feels wasted right now. Still drifting down, Ishii thinks about how even after all that time working alone, it just wasn't enough to succeed. While remembering the flight, Ishii accepts she did her best on her own. At least now she knows she really tried, even if it failed. She slowly descends into the ruined city, looking over the debris and feeling a weird sense of calm, just for making it out alive. Her voice is soft as she says she's just glad Ishii survived, turning away from the wreck and holding on to that as something good. Yu guesses Ishii will probably touch down safely and go back to her usual routine, even after such a big crash. She asks what Chito is up to, and Chito shares she's writing everything in her diary, including what happened with the plane. It helps her process things. Yu checks if it's time to head west, like Ishii said before, and Chito agrees. Together, they get ready to leave this spot behind. The board is still covered in Ishii's notes and sketchy airplane drawings, left behind as a memory of her effort while the girls move forward. Please support the official release. Chito can barely keep standing from hunger, but Yu tells her they have no choice. They need to press on, even if they're starving. She grumbles that just surviving like this, hungry and wandering, barely counts as living at all. Yu tries to keep things moving by telling Chito it'll be fine and pushing her to go, even though the pipes around them look confusing and tense. Chito quietly agrees and takes Yu's hand so they can head into the maze together. They step into a huge, twisted field of pipes, their small figures making the place feel even more massive and empty. Holding hands, the girls carefully pick their way through the uneven maze, surrounded on all sides by dead, silent metal. A big dark pipe blocks the path, so Chito and Yu have to shift around it and figure out where to go next. Seen from above, their path looks tiny and risky. Yu and Chito walk side by side on a thin pipe, lost in a forest of cold metal. Yu brightens up and says they need something extra to get through tough times, but Chito doesn't really follow her logic yet. She starts wrapping a rope around herself, hinting at Yu's plan to stay connected so they don't get separated in the maze. Yu jokes about Chito being into the rope idea, but Chito just ignores her and stays focused on getting through. She eyes the rope, wondering if this setup will actually keep them safe or just mean they both fall if one slips. Yu points out the rope only stops them if they fall in opposite directions, and Chito bluntly says trying to save each other like that just doesn't really work. Admitting her nerves, Chito says she's bad with heights and walking like this just makes her more on edge every step. Yu laughs that life in these ruins means being high up is normal, but Chito fires back. This kind of danger feels way worse. Chito suddenly asks if Yu's hungry, and Yu answers she definitely is, cutting through the awkwardness for a moment. She teases that Yu is always hungry, but Yu complains that this time is different. She's emptier than ever. Yu suddenly realizes Chito's just really scared right now, and Chito quietly admits it as they keep moving through the pipes. From below, the two look small and alone, connected by the rope, the silent maze stretching out as they stand together and shuffle onward. The girls keep going, side by side and still tied together, forcing themselves ahead even though they're tired and unsure of the way. Tiny against the huge network of pipes, Chito and Yu keep moving, their rope all that's left to link them as they walk deeper into the unknown. Yu looks around at the maze and asks if all these pipe paths come together up ahead, just trying to figure out if they're even going the right way. She hesitates and finally admits she only sort of thinks so, but it's clear neither of them has any real idea where to go. They both stop under the mess of pipes and notice it's getting darker, which just makes the whole maze feel even more hopeless. Chito realizes she left their lantern behind and blurts it out, and Yu immediately worries, knowing it's about to get even harder to find their way. Yu suggests maybe they should just call it a day, but Chito refuses, too tired to explain, and insists they keep pressing on. Chito stops and admits she can't remember which direction they came from, and suddenly even Yu starts to doubt. They're both totally turned around. Yu finally says out loud that maybe they really are lost in the endless maze, and Chito doesn't argue, her voice quiet as if she's realizing it too. Chito tries to defend their sense of direction, but Yu just shrugs and jokes that getting lost feels like they're normal anyway. The two girls stop in the middle of a giant tangle of pipes, admitting they're completely lost. When one suggests just crashing right there, the other shoots it down fast. Yu half jokes that if she rolls over and falls off in her sleep, Chito should fall the opposite way to balance things out, but Chito just thinks that's impossible. Chito gets serious and says they have no other option but to keep going, though Yu warns her to be careful with each step, since slipping is still a real risk. She tries to sound positive, saying they'll be fine, but every step forward feels less certain the longer they wander these pipes. Hearing Yu act so sure doesn't help Chito at all. It just makes her even more nervous about getting out of here. Suddenly, Chito loses her balance and almost falls right off, making Yu jump in to grab her before she can actually go over the edge. Chito ends up sprawled on the pipe floor, surprised, and Yu notices something weird. The spot she landed on is now giving off an odd glow beneath her. Both of them freeze, staring as the circle of light around Chito gets brighter, making the old pipe look almost like some glowing sign. Yu calls out, worried, but quickly realizes that the glow is showing them something. It's actually lighting up a hidden path right underneath where they're standing. Looking down through the hatch, Chito finally spots a tunnel inside the pipes, lined with rows of lights and arrows, showing them a direct route they'd missed before. Chito sits on the pipe floor in disbelief, realizing the path was hidden inside all along. Yu drops down after her and points out the lights lining their new tunnel. Now Chito gets that the old warning probably meant this lighted path, while Yu studies the arrows and sees how everything is pointing straight to their destination. Yu calls this the superpath, but Chito just groans, annoyed that they wasted so much time struggling before finding such an easy shortcut. Wondering if they overlooked something, Yu asks if there were signs before, and Chito thinks they must have missed it. Maybe even Ishii passed through here already. Both girls start carefully climbing down a ladder from the pipe's hatch, following the clear tunnel deeper inside. From above, Yu and Chito slowly make their way down the long ladder, stepping right into the big tunnel below, now following the marked directions. Chito points out how huge these pipes really are, and half jokes it would have saved a lot of trouble if these arrows had been there from the start. Yu says there was no way to tell how everything connected from the outside, which Chito finds a bit disappointing after all their wandering. Suddenly, Yu suggests they switch things up and try another route, but Chito is caught off guard since they literally just found the best path. Chito rejects the idea on the spot, saying it makes no sense to ignore the clear way forward when their goal is right in front of them now. Yu quietly admits she would have tried it anyway, but after Chito scolds her about taking things seriously, Yu backs down and drops the subject. Chito shrugs off Yu's random plan, wanting to keep moving, but Yu brings up the real danger. Getting lost again could mean starving out here. Chito checks what Ishii told them and sees their food stash is running low, which makes her pretty anxious about what comes next. Yu tries to joke about Ishii's old machine and how scatterbrained Ishii seemed, but Chito pushes back, warning her not to talk like that. Chito shoots back that of all people, Yu shouldn't be giving Ishii a hard time, and things go a bit tense between them as they keep searching the factory. She decides they have to check every part of the facility for anything useful, heading off toward another area while Yu follows. Yu peeks around and wonders if they can get to a lower floor, hoping there might be more hidden supplies somewhere. They walk up to some big doors and peer inside, both searching for any kind of clue to more food or another way down. They stumble across a weird machine that neither of them recognizes, and Chito tries to guess what it's meant for. Chito figures out the machine must be for making rations, so this is actually a food factory, not just some random warehouse. Yu remembers their last potato and realizes they'll need more than that, so now they have to dig through these machines for anything edible. Curious, Yu presses a button on the machine to see if it does anything, and Chito hesitates, not knowing what might happen. Yu sets off the machinery, and the room fills with loud crashes and clanks, which makes Chito jump in surprise. She calls out to Chito and races across the room, half laughing and half worried as the noise keeps echoing from what she just triggered. Chito winds up stuck and yelling for help on a moving conveyor belt, panicking and begging Yu to shut it off. Yu checks out the machine after stopping it, relieved that at least the thing actually works, even if it's kind of dangerous for them. Chito scolds Yu for fooling around with machines, explaining that you have to get off a moving belt sideways, or you'll just take a spill. Yu admits she messed up and says sorry while Chito walks away, still annoyed and probably just wanting to move on. Crossing a wobbly catwalk above the machines, Chito warns Yu to watch her step, and both girls stay curious about what this big contraption actually does. Chito spots something interesting up ahead and waves Yu over, worrying about being up so high, but thinking they might have found something that matters. She pulls open a heavy crate and guesses the white stuff inside is powder, and Yu looks closer, agreeing it really does look like some kind of food powder. Yu tastes the powder and finds it sweet and kind of familiar, while Chito checks out a door that leads them into the next room for more clues. Both girls try the powder and realize it tastes just like potato. Finally, they know what they've actually found. Yu figures out the powder actually used to be potato, and jokes that Chito almost ended up as powder herself after all that trouble. Chito starts wondering how they're supposed to cook this stuff, pointing out that regular potatoes get boiled, but Yu thinks they can just eat these potato flakes. She tries to come up with another idea. Maybe they can bake the powder instead, since baked food would probably keep them full longer. She studies the machines around them, looking to see if any of these ovens or vents could actually be fired up for baking. Yu hits a switch on one of the control panels, and suddenly the big baking machine starts up. Chito definitely feels more hopeful now that something still works. Chito points out that this really looks like a baking machine, so baking the powder might actually work after all. Yu excitedly calls her over to get started. She studies the label on the powder and realizes, with Yu's help reading, it actually says sugar, and now both girls finally get what this stuff really is. Yu gets a sense that she's seen sugar like this before, right as Chito reminds her they just found some lying around. She tries to link her memory to something from their food lessons, mentioning potatoes, and recalling how Chito always remembers food facts, which Chito can't help poking fun at. Chito suddenly remembers that potatoes were a big part of making solid rations, and Yu latches onto the idea, ready to test if this works. She checks the ingredients list for solid rations and confirms sugar is on there, so they actually found something they can use. Chito spots that the list also has salt, and Yu remembers seeing some extra bags, so now they've got even more to work with. They both get excited and realize they could maybe bake real solid rations for themselves now. Chito brings up helping their grandpa bake bread when she was little, and Yu remembers it too. This memory gives them hope they can pull it off. She figures out they should just mix powder, sugar, and salt, so she starts throwing together ingredients in a huge bin. The girls knead the mix together and add water, and they can tell by the way it comes together that the dough is working. They keep working the dough, joking about how sticky it gets, and for a moment, the whole messed up world feels lighter. They pull and stretch the dough between them, both grinning, just enjoying messing around as the food prep turns into a little game. Once the dough's shaped, they get it set for baking and talk about not messing up the timing. Both girls crouch over the oven and wonder if their ration bread is done, getting more anxious as the top starts to brown. Yu pulls the bread out and cheers, but Chito points out that it might be a bit overcooked. At least the bread looks solid. They stare at the bread and start joking about its shiny finish and weird shape, guessing which animal it could possibly look like. Chito cracks off a piece of the shiny bread and without much hesitation gets ready to try the first bite. Both girls take a bite. Chito admits it's pretty hard, but they just close their eyes and focus on how good it tastes. They talk about how much dough they have left, with Yu thinking it might last a whole year, while Chito says that's too hopeful. But counting what's left, they both feel better. She digs into another bite, gets lost in how sweet it is, and just enjoys the flavor for a moment, completely absorbed. She blurts out that it's super sweet, and Chito realizes it's because they dumped in way too much sugar by mistake. Yu laughs and says sweetness is happiness. Chito agrees, and for a bit, they both just relax and enjoy the bread together. Yu and Chito pull up their little vehicle at the edge of a giant maze built from endless walls and hallways. Yu calls the place weird and both girls feel unsettled. There's just something off about this place they're about to explore. They drive deeper between the towering walls, feeling small and lost, with no idea what anyone ever needed all these strange halls and compartments for. Chito checks a compartment and finds nothing important inside, just more random junk. Yu shrugs, sounding let down that there's nothing worth taking. Yu tries to remember if they've found anything useful so far, but Chito stops and admits nothing has really stood out. They go over all the random stuff they've found, a weird machine, empty shells, scraps of cloth, and even a button. The pile does not feel useful. Chito's surprised to see Yu still holding onto a scrap of cloth, but Yu says she thought it might help someday, even if it's just a small thing. Yu fiddles with the scrap, insisting it might come in handy. Chito doubts it and just watches, not convinced. Chito keeps pushing back, not seeing any point in the scrap, but Yu argues it could be useful, so neither wants to give up the thought just yet. While driving, they start wondering out loud, why are all these useless things stored here so carefully, almost like each one matters to somebody? Yu suddenly points something out up ahead. Chito perks up too, both girls curious as they spot something odd in the maze, a familiar-looking figure or shape. She suddenly spots something tall in the middle of the room and calls out the statue, grabbing Chito's attention so they both look up at it. Chito watches as Yu snaps another photo with the camera, admitting she really enjoys using it and likes how it feels in her hands. She tries saying, cameras are great for saving memories, but she immediately struggles to recall Kanazawa's name, and Chito calls her out for forgetting someone they met. Chito, quiet for a second, thinks to herself and thanks Kanazawa. She remembers he's the one who gave them the camera in the first place. She helps Yu remember. Kanazawa is the name they were reaching for. The memory returns and both realize it's surprisingly easy to forget someone who mattered to them. Yu admits she probably would have forgotten Kanazawa if not for having the camera. That thought makes Chito uneasy, since you'd think memories like that should last. Chito begins to worry about all the people they've met, but Yu reassures her. She says as long as they have stuff like the camera, they'll keep remembering. Yu shrugs off the worry, saying it probably doesn't matter whether Kanazawa or Ishii are out there, they're just not likely to cross paths again. Chito quietly wonders if they'll end up forgetting everyone anyway, even people who seemed important at the time. The question just hangs there for both girls. She suddenly notices something new, pointing at a small detail nearby and grabbing Yu's focus. It breaks the heavy mood for a moment. Exploring further, the girls realize each drawer in this place has a name written on it, linking the objects to someone who once owned them. At first, Chito guesses these are just forgotten items, but Yu sees it differently. These drawers exist so nobody will forget the people behind the names. Standing in the long shadows, Chito calls the whole place a tomb, which suddenly makes both girls feel the weight of where they are. Yu goes quiet while Chito's words sink in. The silence feels heavy. They both start to realize what these walls and objects really mean. The view pulls back to show the maze stretching endlessly with rows of drawers and a single tall statue alone in the snow. Chito's word, tomb, echoes as the girls sit small and silent in the middle of it all. Yu tries to explain that these names and keepsakes are like markers, left to make sure people out there remember whoever disappeared from this world. Chito worries aloud. If people like them are the last ones who ever visit, and everyone else is gone, then who keeps the memory going? She tries to lighten the mood by pointing out something else nearby, pulling Chito's attention to the idea that maybe there's more here than just sadness and loss. Chito stops in front of an old statue, thinking out loud about how it keeps someone's memory alive, like the person is still here somehow even after they're gone. The girls lean against their sled as the snow comes down harder, and Chito warns that it's about to get even colder for both of them. She sits quietly in the falling snow, reaching out her hand and letting the cold sink in while she tries to catch a snowflake. She keeps her eyes on the tiny snowflake that lands on her palm, watching it melt away almost instantly. Chito tells Yu they should put back anything she picked up earlier, making it clear those things belong here, not to them. Yu asks why it matters, so Chito explains taking those objects would erase the meaning they hold, like wiping away the memory itself. Chito and Yu are already wired from their recent brush with danger when they spot a fallen pillar, wondering if climbing this broken tower is even safe. She gets more stressed thinking about all the hidden danger in these ruins, and Yu just tries to act like it's nothing, which only annoys Chito more. Yu tries to explain that she's gotten so used to living with danger, she can barely feel scared anymore, but this just leaves Chito baffled. They see the elevator outside is completely broken, so their only real shot is to climb up inside, even though this tower is much tighter than the last one. Chito thinks they're at least lucky to have an inside route instead of nothing, because it's very different from their last climb, but much safer than hanging outside. Yu says she'd rather risk this narrow pathway than trust another sketchy elevator, and Chito agrees, but she hesitates, feeling like there's more to say. She points out that even after all this climbing, it feels like they're stuck, just looping around and never making any real progress upward. They start doubting if they're even going the right direction, but Yu insists they're heading up, even while it feels like a hopeless repeat. Chito quietly misses those old days when wandering in circles felt safer, especially compared to how everything now seems so risky and unstable. Yu finally admits she's tired of this weird climb and just wants to get back to how things were before this mess. She points out how sketchy everything gets the higher they go, and teases Chito for always getting nervous, which really ticks Chito off. Yu asks Chito if being this scared even counts as living, making their already uncomfortable climb feel even heavier. Chito gets dizzy from spinning around the spiral and just rolls her eyes at Yu's comment, clearly done with the whole argument. Her head is spinning from all the looping, and Yu has to snap her out of it to keep her from losing focus halfway up the climb. Suddenly, the path up ahead is completely busted. Both girls freeze, realizing their only route could be gone. Chito and Yu catch sight of an opening that looks like an exit, but they can't tell if it's actually safe to try crossing over. They notice a shaky path someone else once built outside the spiral. Now they're faced with whether to risk this odd shortcut just to escape the endless climb. Chito leans against the railing and worries about trusting some random walkway, while Yu tries to calm her down by saying it should be okay. Yu starts teasing Chito about being scared, but Chito shuts her down fast. She knows the risks and doesn't want to hear it spelled out again. She braces herself and finally decides to move forward, even though the path ahead still looks dangerous. She and Yu steer their small truck onto the narrow, creaky ramp, holding their breath and hoping the path can hold up beneath them. The vehicle crawls up the twisting ramp, every bolt screeching as they move farther away from anything solid. Chito grabs the handlebars tight, watching the way ahead, while Yu checks for weak spots in the beamwork. The girls inch along the ledge, barely any room between them and the open air, so they keep going as carefully as possible. Chito and Yu lock eyes, both knowing there's no turning back, not with the path so narrow and dangerous up ahead. Out of nowhere, the ramp shifts and warps under the truck. Metal clangs and Chito shouts as rails start to twist, Suddenly, the platform beneath them starts breaking apart. Beams screech, and bolts snap loose while they both cling to the truck as the walkway threatens to fall apart. Yu yells for Chito as they cling on, and Chito tries desperately to keep the wheel steady with pieces of the floor breaking off. She shouts for Chito to floor it, sweat dripping down her face, while the ramp crumbles and the girls rush to beat the collapse. Chito slams the gas pedal, forcing their truck forward as broken chunks fly off and everything shakes, making it clear there's no going back now. The old ramp groans and falls apart, metal railings warped or missing, but the girls push on anyway as bits fall away under their wheels. Their truck rattles across the last piece of ledge, high above the city, while loose debris and metal crash down behind them. Chito and Yu barely make it through, skidding into a shadowy hallway right as the ramp outside rips away and crashes down. Behind them, the damaged ramp finally breaks apart for good, collapsing in pieces with no way to turn back. Both girls freeze in their seats, hands still tight on the controls, wide-eyed after their narrow escape. You can see the relief as Chito and Yu finally exhale and glance at each other, realizing they made it. Yu groans about how close they came to wiping out, and even though the danger isn't totally gone, they're just glad to still be moving. Chito and Yu talk it over. Now that they're off the broken ramp, just having solid ground under their wheels feels amazing, something they never really cared about before. They spot a way out up ahead, and Chito points out an opening that leads higher, giving them a fresh path upward in the tower. Riding out onto a flatter upper section, they see it's still pretty dark, but at least the ground feels safe, and the route goes up. As they roll along, the girls start thinking about how all they really do is sleep, wake up, eat, and keep moving. Sitting near a giant spinning fan, Yu suddenly asks Chito what exactly she means when she calls something alive, and that throws Chito into deep thought. Chito clears up that when she said the machinery was alive, she just meant it was still running, not actually alive like a living thing. Yu gets the mix-up. She interrupts by asking what actually makes something an organism, so Chito has to pause and figure out how to answer her. Driving through a maze of pipes and enormous tanks, Yu starts talking about a strange new structure ahead that catches her attention. Chito and Yu ride slowly ahead, their spotlight cutting through pipes and shadow as they keep searching for whatever just made that heavy noise. From above, the girls look like a small dot against the towering wall. Their path narrows, drawing them deeper into this maze of machinery. She drifts off in the seat, zoning out while their vehicle hums along. The steady noise from the overhead machinery fills the empty space around them. Up on the rooftops, shadows stretch out while a weird mechanical noise travels across the empty metal grid, warning something new might be nearby. The strange noise grows louder, making Chito wonder if something could actually be alive here after all. That question about what counts as life won't go away. Chito steers the vehicle down the narrow path as the heavy clanking noise echoes ahead, both of them tensing up because whatever's making that sound is still out of sight. The vehicle crawls forward between huge walls, their engine echoing in the wide open space. Chito scans around as the noise from the pipes keeps everyone on edge. Yu breaks the tense silence to check on Chito, but Chito hushes her, still listening as that loud mechanical noise rattles closer. The vehicle rolls into a vast room packed with tanks and pipes. Suddenly, something drops nearby with a heavy thunk, and both girls go stiff, waiting for what happens next. Chito and Yu freeze, staring straight ahead. That weird noise has both of them on high alert. Another thick clunk echoes out as something big drags or knocks against the pipes, still out of their sight. Looking up, Chito and Yu see a massive machine, shaped like a spider, moving above them. Its thin legs stretch over huge tanks plastered with warning signs. The giant machine blocks out the overhead lights, casting a huge shadow down over their vehicle, while more gears clatter and groan somewhere close by. Chito grips the wheel tighter as Yu raises her rifle, both bracing while the metal noises ring through the corridor, not sure what the machine will do next. She nudges the vehicle forward, sneaking a look as the spindly machine slowly walks away across the open factory floor. Yu lets out a breath, and the tension drops a bit. Both girls watch the strange machine go, still processing what they just witnessed. As they drive through the pipes, Yu asks if the machine could have been alive, but Chito shoots that down and teases her about not knowing enough words. Trying to shut down the argument, Yu says it had to be just a machine, since it looked exactly like regular machinery and nothing more. Chito pushes back that machines don't breathe or understand themselves, trying to get Yu to see the difference as they keep driving deeper into the facility. Yu wonders aloud if someone could have been controlling the giant machine the whole time. She throws out a wild idea about what it would mean if some machine actually showed up and greeted them, pressing Chito to stretch her logic further. Yu fires back that nobody's even claimed a machine like that exists, and besides, people say there aren't any living things left but humans. Chito, though, isn't so sure about what they're supposed to believe now. Suddenly both girls spot something they never expected, a living fish swimming by in the silent corridor. The moment feels so odd that it's almost hard to believe. Chito, surprised, repeats that the fish is alive while she and Yu head down some steps, stuck between shock and fascination at this tiny proof of life. Yu suddenly calls out to Chito, pulling her out of her thoughts while they keep walking together down the empty corridor. Just ahead, a set of thin, spidery legs comes into view, reminding them both of the earlier machine. They realize something is heading right for them. Both girls freeze up and stare as the shape gets closer. They're so shocked by what's coming their way that neither one manages to say anything. The machine steps out, faces them, and says hello. Both Chito and Yu stop in their tracks, completely shocked that it's actually speaking. Please support the official release. Yu kicks up a splash in the pool, delighted she can float on her back for once. Chito watches from the side, not sure about getting in. When Chito asks if Yu is okay, Yu groans about being tired and just wants to eat something. Ideally some fish. Her hunger kills the moment. Chito reminds her the fish aren't for eating, shutting down Yu's plan. Yu tries to argue, but Chito stands firm, putting an end to the idea. While Yu keeps complaining in the background, she refuses to give up on wanting fish. The food problem hangs there between the two of them. Suddenly, a voice from somewhere in the building jumps in and says, "The fish are under its protection and strictly off limits to anyone else." Yu realizes the voice is coming from a working machine, and Chito is clearly a little freaked that they're now talking to a machine in charge. Both girls stare at the machine, trying to figure out what it's supposed to be, while a fish swims quietly behind them. The machine introduces itself as the one in charge of this section, letting them know it's safe but still very much in control of everything here. Yu immediately says they should just grab the fish anyway and go for it. Chito asks if the huge machine they saw earlier was some kind of defense robot. Since they can't eat the fish, Chito asks the machine to explain the facility instead, and the machine agrees to show them around. The girls walk down a long hallway with the machine leading the way, their footsteps echoing as they head deeper into the silent facility. Yu tries one last time for the fish, saying she'd really like to eat some. The machine shuts her down right away and refuses to argue about it. Chito glances over to see Yu sulking, but this time Yu drops the subject and sits there defeated. Now the machine points out they're standing under the biggest water tank. Both girls look up, watching light dance across the water above them. Yu daydreams about swimming in all that water, wishing for a turn to dive in. The machine tells them the facility has 102 tanks total, but only 12 still work now, and just a single one actually has anything inside. Chito checks, so only the working tank has fish, while the rest are empty. The machine confirms, saying there are no fish left anywhere else here. They hear that the whole facility used to produce food fish on a massive scale, but since everything broke down, that's over. Now just one tank holds fish, and everything else is empty. The girls are told they're still free to use the other tanks however they want. Chito sits at the pool's edge, still clothed, while Yu plays in the water. Chito tries to chat, but Yu just keeps splashing. Yu wonders if the fish they saw earlier came from this place, but Chito warns her not to turn swimming time into another mess. Chito says if they keep messing around in the water, it's going to get dirty fast, snapping Yu out of her fun. Yu gets wrapped up in her wet clothes trying to change, calling for help, while Chito sits calmly in the pool, not rushing over. Chito rambles about how people split off from the earth like it used to be one big living thing, still half floating and out of it in the water. It keeps going, saying humans disrupted the way energy cycles through water and air by building huge artificial systems. That shift changed things for good. She explains that cities like these were made to keep the environment steady for people, depending completely on machines to keep everyone alive. She adds that all anyone can do now is keep patching up what little is left, just enough to hold the city's shell together. She brushes off the deeper meaning behind their routine, figuring they're just fixing what they can, even if nobody else is around these days. Yu splashes around, trying to get Chito to join her, while one voice wonders how Yu can swim so easily compared to the rest of them. She jokes about swimming without underwear to be more comfortable, but Chito clearly feels weird about that, especially with someone or something else nearby. Yu tries giving Chito swimming tips, but Chito's still unsure what to do with her feet in the water and hesitates to move. She tries to kick, but her feet can't touch the bottom, and she ends up just wobbling in the water, looking pretty uncertain and tense. She panics when she realizes her feet can't reach the bottom, but Yu tries to reassure her that she'll float if she stays calm. Chito starts flailing, thrown off by losing her footing, and Yu realizes right away how fast things can get out of hand in the pool. She sinks deeper, panic setting in as she loses any sense of control, and the real depth of the pool finally hits her. Still underwater, Chito quietly gasps for air, drifting further down while bubbles rise alongside her. As she floats beneath the surface, Chito flashes back to a dream that felt just like this, scared but oddly calm at the same time. She stretches her hand up through the water, thinking of the ocean, while bubbles drift up to the light, and she keeps slipping further away from the surface. Yu dives in and swims after her, but Chito's too lost in thoughts of the ocean and fish to react, and it's on the edge of being dangerous. She bursts out of the water, hauling Chito up with her. Chito coughs and gasps for breath while Yu checks if she's okay, snapping her out of her haze. Breathing hard, Chito mumbles about the earth once being a single organism, still half lost in thought, even as she recovers. Chito just floats there, totally out of it, while Yu swims up looking puzzled. All Chito can think is, what is it now? Yu looks at the broken machine and wonders if she could really repair something as complicated as Chito just did. She tries to get involved by asking how to help feed the fish, and Chito brings her in, which makes Yu light up at finally being included. Chito lays out the job. They still need to feed the fish 5 more pieces, so Yu jumps in to help, trying to follow Chito's instructions exactly. Yu brings up the idea of befriending the giant fish, but Chito shuts it down by reminding her that this thing is a predator, and probably too dangerous for that. She gets caught up thinking how great it'd be to take the fish along with them as they travel. As Yu rambles about taking the fish with them, she starts drifting off to sleep. Chito, worn down, decides they need to find somewhere warmer to rest for the night. Yu wonders if the machine really seems alive, while Chito explains it's just made to look that way so people feel attached to it. They slide into a gap between pipes, searching for a warm and safe place in the dark factory. Under a big pipe, the girls finally settle in, soaking up the leftover heat that makes the spot almost comfortable. Chito and Yu are just getting cozy when the water in the fish tank suddenly starts bubbling. Something is definitely wrong nearby. They try to nap as the pipe's warmth helps them relax, and for a moment, everything seems peaceful. A loud, strange noise jolts them awake. Chito sits up, confused and tense, as the sound echoes through the factory. Chito rubs her head and tries to figure out where the clattering is coming from since it keeps getting louder. Something nearby is moving fast. Mechanical debris drops from above and the noise grows. Chito reacts quickly, waking Yu as the tension spikes. Yu gets excited when she spots the huge machine causing the chaos. Above them, the robot arms keep moving, breaking down the old structures. The girls watch as more of the place is marked to be scrapped. Chito and Yu realize the machine is dismantling the area, and things are about to get worse for them. She wonders out loud if these breakdowns and wrecks are just another part of how things change over time, like evolution, but more brutal. Yu thinks maybe the destruction all around them is just how life pushes forward, and she feels like this could make sense if Chito paid attention. Then Yu throws out a new idea: they should rescue the fish. Chito is caught off guard, and now that's their next challenge. Chito looks up at the wreckage and quietly admits she has no way to fix something this broken, since it's just beyond her. Yu starts to suspect she might be the one to turn things around, feeling like she has a real shot at saving the fish if she pushes herself. She jokes about eating the fish, but Chito admits the real reason she wants to save it just hit her out of nowhere. Chito tries to sort out her feelings, thinking it might just be simple sympathy for the fish, nothing more complicated. They go over their supplies and realize they've collected about half the explosives from earlier floors, figuring it should be enough to use against the machine. Yu suggests sticking explosives right onto the machine to bust it up inside and finally put a stop to its work. She eyes the catwalk above, planning out how to reach the machine's back. Chito stays worried that this stunt could be too risky. Chito doubts saving the fish will really change much, but she can see how important it is to Yu, so she agrees to go along with the plan anyway. Yu brings up the idea of blowing up the big machine. Chito hesitates and wonders if that would count as killing it. Chito stops to think about how the fish is alive and starts to feel like saving it really does matter for both of them. She thinks about how she can relate to the fish and the machine, even though they don't talk back. She remembers times when even things like machines and cities felt as alive as people. She moves into place, focused on timing things right so they save the fish before time runs out. She calls the machine a huge guy and quietly apologizes, knowing what comes next might destroy it for good. She makes her way up the shaky catwalk, pushing herself forward even though she can feel how flimsy it is. She darts across the thin bridge, rushing over the machine as the whole thing rattles under her boots. Holding tight to her bag, Chito checks the machine overhead and waits for Yu's signal to go. She sets off the explosives and the machine bursts apart, filling the empty hall with flying chunks and noise. The explosion rips the machine and nearby walkway to pieces, dropping wreckage everywhere and leaving only dust behind. She admits out loud that everything ends, but she's glad she and the fish get at least a bit more time. Looking at what's left of the city, the girls agree that all things, people, machines, even these ruins, will break down sooner or later. Chito and Yu start to wonder if the real mark of life is simply that it ends. Maybe things just feel alive because they don't last forever. She thinks about this and nods, standing with Yu in the middle of all the ruins while they let the idea sink in together. They look at the broken machine and wonder if fixing it, after saving the fish, would really count as changing anything or just repeating the same cycle. Both admit the structure is too busted to bring back. Chito quietly says she can't fix what's already gone and realizes she just has to accept it. Yu points out Chito can't fix things, only patch them up, and Chito admits all she can really do is stop things from breaking worse. Sitting next to Yu, Chito points out that even progress has limits. After the city fell, the people who lived here disappeared for good. She notes that if nothing new can come from all this loss, then maybe that's the true end, and Yu quietly agrees. As they watch the fish swim away, the girls admit they'd be happy if both fish and people could stick around for a lot longer. The two hop back on their ride and head off, the sound of their engine echoing through the empty ruins as they move on to whatever comes next. Chito and Yu roll up in their vehicle, stopping as a heavy gate marked A5 slides open for them, making it clear they're heading somewhere unknown. They guide the bike through the opening, slipping inside as overhead shadows stretch over the empty floor and the outside light starts to fade. The big door slams shut behind them with a loud echo, locking the girls in and cutting them off from anything outside. Inside, the place is huge with strange rails and scattered machines. Every sound bounces off the walls, making them feel even smaller and more alone. Yu wanders over to check out a wall while calling out to Chito. Chito stays put, both of them eyeing the odd machines and the giant empty area around them. She calls Chito over to check out the massive, mysterious facility, and both girls are left staring up, wondering what all this machinery was actually for. Suddenly, the room goes dark as the lights cut out again, leaving both Chito and Yu standing there uneasy, surrounded by shadows and not sure what to do next. The girls sit on a bench, surrounded by wrecked stuff. The silence drags on until Yu admits she's bored, her voice showing just how stuck they are. Chito taps her fingers quietly as Yu just sits there, both waiting for something interesting to happen instead of this long, awkward pause. She glances sideways at the mess of broken boards and worn-out gear. With nothing happening, it feels like even time itself has stalled out for them. She breaks the silence by suggesting they check out the front of the train, and Chito gets up to follow her lead. As they move forward, something suddenly catches Yu's eye, and Chito immediately wants to know what she saw. Yu tries to put it together, pointing out they're technically traveling much faster than usual since they're driving their bike on a moving train, and Chito just nods along. She gets all hyped, thinking they're now going twice as fast, but Chito quickly sets her straight and points out the math doesn't quite add up that way. She stops to think about the real explanation, realizing there's something a lot more odd about how they're moving. Yu starts to wonder how fast they're really traveling right now. She blurts out this goofy idea. Maybe they're moving so fast they could circle the whole planet in a single day, which leaves Chito kind of staring at her. Yu tries to figure out Chito's logic, and it hits her. Just by moving every day, it's like they've been circling the planet over and over. She laughs at the thought, because thinking about all that endless movement suddenly seems pretty wild to her. Yu's eyes go wide as their ride passes under a giant machine that's crashed into the ceiling, showing them just how wrecked and strange this place can get. Chito notes they're seeing broken machines more often, and makes a quick check to see if this one is completely useless too. Yu calls the broken machine a corpse, and noticing its boxy shape, she says it feels like the graves they passed earlier. Chito keeps thinking about where this journey even leads, but Yu spots something weird stuck on the train and gets Chito to come look. She finds a strange device and recognizes it as a clock, but wonders why anyone would leave a clock here of all places. Yu admits she can't really read clocks anymore, and Chito isn't sure it matters since they can't even tell real time underground. She wonders if this clock moves faster than the planet turning, but Chito shakes her head and explains it just shows how the hands move while the earth spins on. She sums it up. Time keeps moving and the world keeps spinning, even if it feels like they're stuck here. Yu is eager to get going and tries to hurry things along, but Chito still wants to wait a little while before moving out. She tries to speed things up, but Chito tells her rushing won't change anything. They're stuck moving at the train's pace, no matter what. Yu tries to justify rushing, but Chito pushes back, pointing out that hurrying won't actually get them anywhere in this weird, endless city. Chito suddenly remembers hearing that people used to wear clocks on their bodies, which just sounds weird to Yu in a world where time barely matters now. She explains clocks used to help people stick to plans, but having a schedule is hard to imagine for them these days. Chito pushes back against Yu's urge to rush, admitting she hates hurrying and hinting that even they have limits they can't ignore. Suddenly, the train stops with a jolt, catching both girls off guard. Chito looks around and tries to figure out what happened. The two sit quietly, checking out the place where the train stopped. Chito wonders if this is actually their destination. Yu jumps up, wanting to leave right away, but Chito makes her wait a second before they do anything else. Spotting a line of blinking lights, Chito figures out they're just at one of many stops, and there are more stations coming up. They both realize they're not at the last stop yet, so the journey keeps going. Chito circles back to earlier, starting up their talk about time again and what it ends up meaning for them. She points out they really do have time limits, mostly because of food, so they decide to keep moving as long as they've got supplies left. Chito calls the plan flexible, and both girls agree to just follow the tracks wherever they go next. Chito glances over the empty waste and admits it feels like they've traveled a long way, but she suddenly notices Yu has gone quiet. Yu relaxes on the vehicle and says she hears something strange. Chito wants to know what kind of sound it is, honestly curious but cautious. She pulls out a weird, boxy device she found, saying it sometimes makes odd noises, which leaves Chito confused and a little suspicious about it. Yu pulls out the odd device she grabbed from the graves, Chito immediately warns her it might be cursed since it belonged to someone who died. She tries to laugh it off, saying the dead can't bother them if they don't have weapons, as if that means they're fine. The girl's vehicle clatters through the ruins, filling the quiet with the echo of treads, while they both get lost in their own thoughts about what could go wrong. As they keep rolling, Chito looks away, uneasy, while Yu keeps messing with the machine, and a heavy silence settles between them. As they roll through the shadowy ruins, Yu tries to describe the strange noise. She says it's kind of like voices, but with a weird, steady rhythm. As the device lets out a strange melody, Yu wonders if it might actually be playing a song and asks Chito about it. Yu tries to mimic the strange noise and suddenly realizes it's not just random, it's music made with people's voices, surprising both of them. Chito asks for a closer look at the machine, and Yu hands it over. Both girls focus hard on the device, trying to figure out what makes it special. Yu tries to guess what the strange device is, thinking it must pick up waves or something, but all Chito can say is the sound just felt sad. She turns the question on Chito, wanting to know if music really can make someone feel sad, for no obvious reason. Chito says she honestly doesn't know how it works, but the strange music from the device does make her feel a little sad deep down. She adds that sometimes random things, even the sound of rain, can make her happier, though she doesn't really get the reason for any of it. Chito starts to figure maybe music has an effect just because of its rhythm, and Yu suggests that could be why it changes how people feel. She pauses, thinking out loud that even basic sounds have rhythm, but she still isn't sure if that's enough to explain why music feels special. Yu comes back to the idea that maybe the machine uses waves like light or radio, trying to get Chito to explain more about her earlier guess. Chito admits she's pretty lost on the science, but knows waves can show up both in sounds and light. They keep talking as they slowly bump along. She hesitates when Yu asks if light cheers her up, admitting she's not really sure if things like streetlights actually make her feel happier inside. Ahead of them, a giant machine towers over the ruins in the darkness, making Chito and Yu seem extra small as they push forward across the abandoned city. Under the huge piece of machinery, Yu admits she just wants to see sunlight again soon, and Chito quietly agrees, both of them missing the sky after being below ground for so long. Chito realizes they actually have no idea how far the train took them, since they've been wandering through random buildings for ages. She figures their only real hope is to get back up to the surface, but Yu pushes back, unsure how they'd even manage that in this maze. She repeats Chito's suggestion about getting up to the surface, still trying to wrap her head around how they're going to pull that off. She looks around from their vehicle and spots something strange out ahead, calling over to get Chito's attention and figure out what it might be. They reach a steep, open slope where Chito points out a huge elevator-looking machine nearby, so now both of them hope it could be their way up. Chito walks over and discovers a big switch next to the elevator platform, while Yu wonders if they'll even get lucky enough for it to still work. She checks out the control panel and wonders if this switch will actually do anything for the big machine. Chito flips the switch while Yu waits on the vehicle, and both of them watch closely to see if the giant elevator will respond. The platform suddenly rumbles and starts moving up, carrying both Yu and Chito. They're surprised their plan actually worked. As they rise, Chito's excitement fades, and she starts to worry something feels wrong about the whole setup. Chito points out how steep and far the slope really is, hinting the climb might be way harder than they guessed. Getting nervous, Chito asks if Yu can stop the platform because it's going way higher than she expected. As the lift nears the top, Yu yells that she can spot the switch up ahead. The elevator suddenly stops, and both girls tumble off. Yu lands face first with a groan, while Chito keeps trying to steady herself. Yu slumps over, worn out, as they both listen to the strange device. Even Chito admits the weird music in the air sounds a little sad. She looks out over the city, noticing the sun setting far off toward the south. It sinks in how much ground they've covered. The girls sit side by side at the edge of the platform, pointing out something odd in the distance. One of them notices the sky turning red. She watches the horizon and mentions the red glow, not really sure what it means as the sky darkens for night. She stares quietly over the rooftops, studying the sharp red light shining out from the center, and trying to figure out what it could be. She sits in silence, looking tired and a little zoned out, just thinking as the quiet moment drags on between them. She watches the bright red sun drop behind the ruins and wonders if even the sunlight seems a little sad now. Noticing Yu's eyes are watery, Chito asks if Yu's crying, but Yu says it's just the sunlight stinging her eyes. Yu asks if Chito is the one crying from being sad, but Chito explains it's only because she scraped her knee and it hurts. Chito and Yu stand at the edge of an enormous crater ripped through the city, trying to figure out what could have caused such massive damage. While Yu checks her own hair, she shrugs off the mess and decides fixing it any further just isn't worth it, especially since they're out here alone. Chito comments on Yu's wild hair, but the two both seem to agree it's really not a big deal with everything else going on around them. She points out that, at least after their cleanup, they look a little less grimy, which is about the most they can ask for today. Yu tries to laugh it off, joking that she might have made her haircut even worse. Gazing down, Chito wonders aloud if the hole even has a bottom. The city feels even bigger and stranger, with that mystery hanging over them. They step closer and spot busted-up weapons everywhere. Yu points out the mess, and Chito starts to wonder if a huge fight broke out here long ago. As they both pause, Yu asks if this whole pit might have been blasted open in that battle, but Chito just hums, still unsure what to believe. Thinking it over, Chito figures maybe the hole was made on purpose, set up for battle gear and platforms instead of being just accidental destruction. Chito figures maybe this giant hole was dug way before any battles happened, so now they're both wondering what really made it in the first place. She tries to piece things together, guessing someone built the city around this massive old hole after some battle, and that's just how it stayed. They come across a giant leaking water tank, surprised to see it still working. For a moment, they feel hopeful something useful might still exist among the ruins. They realize water still runs down from above, turning the tank into a rough fountain. Even out here, things fit together just enough to keep going. Yu sticks her hand into the freezing spray. She yelps and makes a fuss about the cold while Chito stands back, not impressed by Yu's new idea. Now both girls are soaked from Yu's stunt. Chito looks annoyed, while Yu stands there dripping. Chito starts shivering, finally snapping to mention that messing with freezing water was a bad idea, and now they both have to deal with it. Their boots are soaked, and they splash through icy puddles as they walk away, which makes every step forward a miserable chore. Trying to lighten things up, Yu suggests saving their food until they reach the center of the hole, so getting to the middle becomes their new goal for now. Chito and Yu sit down between broken cannons and piles of metal, taking a break to breathe and look at all the wreckage around them. While eating, Yu points out that most of the stuff they could use to cook potatoes is gone. That part of their journey isn't coming back. They keep walking through the wrecked artillery, bundled up and dragging themselves along, still trying to make sense of the ruined city, stretching all around them. She points out how great it would be if they actually found fish in the water here, but there's clearly nothing moving except the ripples. Chito points out that, no matter what Yu says, she really just wants to eat the fish, even if she claims it's about helping them. They sit and eat, debating if surviving off anything they can find is really that different from carefully rationing their food each day. Chito stands up and looks around, wondering out loud what else, besides water, might come out of these huge pipes in the ruins. She checks inside a metal pipe, thinking for a second that maybe some kind of food could surprise them, bringing a little hope back for their search. Chito suddenly remembers she left the water tank behind, so now they have to figure out what to do about getting water. A weird blobby creature slips out of the pipes and lands right in front of Chito, giving both girls a huge shock. A weird white blob creeps out from the dark pipe, and both girls freeze, realizing they've never run into something like this before. The creature wriggles out a little more, drawing all their attention, and making both of them wonder what they're even looking at. Yu tries to figure out if whatever's hiding could just be a fish, but Chito's sure it's something way weirder. She hands Chito a stick and suggests she tap the pipe to coax the creature out, but Chito isn't sure that's such a smart idea. Chito cautiously pokes at the inside of the pipe with the stick, glancing at Yu to check if anything's happening while both watch for movement. She wonders if trying to knock it out will even work, but as she leans closer, something inside actually starts to move. Suddenly the creature pops right out, making Yu fall back in surprise while Chito checks on her, both startled by how fast it jumped out. Chito tries to figure out what this thing actually is. She knows it's not a fish, and Yu, guessing wildly, wonders if it's maybe like a cat. Yu gets excited and wants to eat the ration right away, but Chito stops her and tells her to wait before doing anything. Chito stops the back and forth and asks if Yu also heard a strange little voice, which confuses both of them even more. Yu tries calling the strange creature a cat and questions it directly, while Chito still doubts it could possibly talk or even be a real cat. The blob makes a gentle noise that sounds like Nuko, so Yu repeats the sound, surprising both girls when it actually responds. Chito decides the creature is probably just making random sounds and suggests they should leave it be, trying to get things back to normal. Yu wonders if they should cook the creature, since food is rare, but Chito quickly shuts that idea down, saying they can't eat something that speaks and sighs. She questions whether Chito just feels sorry for the creature, hinting maybe Chito's letting her feelings overrule hunger. Chito insists there's nothing left to find here and tells Yu it's time to move on, but as they leave, Yu spots the creature trailing quietly behind them. The strange blob bounces after the girls, not caring what they decided, and clearly intends to stick with them. She stares in disbelief, not sure what to make of the new tag-along, as it keeps following. The blob gazes up at Yu, looking just as blank and unfazed as before. Chito glances at Yu, asking if she really plans to eat the creature, while Yu just hugs it tighter. She thinks out loud that most things in their world keep disappearing, so maybe bringing something new along wouldn't be so bad for once. Out of nowhere, both Yu and the creature jump, startled at the same time as something surprises them again. Chito says the blob is kind of creepy and asks if Yu will carry it, but Yu shrugs and figures it wants to stick around anyway. Please support the official release. Yu tries to joke about what to say in weird situations, but Chito finds it hard to take her seriously, setting up the usual gap between them. She gets excited when the strange creature copies a word she taught it, while Chito just stands there, still confused by what they're dealing with. Yu holds up a huge shell and jokes about feeding it to the creature, which makes Chito pause and wonder what it would actually do with a bullet that big. They dig through a pile of oversized bullets, counting out the huge calibers, but Chito is quick to complain there's no way anybody can actually use rounds that massive. The odd creature puts together garbled words about eating, which sends Yu off on another playful challenge, while Chito worries out loud if that's really possible. Yu wonders if the creature could really eat bullets, and saying it out loud leaves both of them quiet for a second, as they picture how that would even work. They push their cart through the broken remains of a city, steering past crooked beams and shattered concrete as the weirdness of their new companion sticks in their minds. She starts guessing what powers the creature, tossing out maybe it eats gunpowder as Yu listens in, but it's clear neither of them has a real clue. Their little ride keeps clattering between twisted metal piles, and talk about the odd creature trails off while they focus on moving forward. All of a sudden, Chito spots something up ahead and stiffens, making Yu look up too, since it means things might not be safe. Chito suddenly stops their cart in the middle of a mess of beams and old machines, so Yu looks over and asks what's up. With their cart rattling beneath them, both girls push even deeper into the messy ruins, checking every shadow for anything that might move. They break out into a wide space lined with huge tanks in silent rows, and both girls pause, completely dwarfed by the abandoned machines. Yu jokes that Chito never really cared about the tanks, and as Chito tries to sound out a tough word from the old book, Yu just wishes her luck. Chito digs through old supplies and finds a strange book, realizing she can't read any of the letters and starting to wonder what kind of people used to live here, while Yu half watches, distracted by all the odd gear. Even though Chito likes the book, Yu calls her out for hoarding junk, as if she's not doing the same thing by grabbing a big shell for herself. Chito tells Yu the creature only wants what's useful or edible, joking that makes it a lot like Yu, and the creature stays busy fiddling with trash, making the point. When Yu jokes about feeding a huge shell to the creature, Chito cuts her off fast and says to just toss it, not wanting to push their luck. The girls stare as the creature actually swallows a 20mm shell, making them realize it can eat things they never expected. Yu's impressed by how loaded down the creature looks after eating, but Chito reminds her not to mess with their new friend, just to see what it can handle. She wonders if eating bullets counts as part of culture, but Chito figures that's just how the creature survives, not a cultural thing. Chito explains to Yu that culture is what divides human groups, like different writing or habits, and even argues those differences cause a lot of fights. Yu looks out, thinking about why people get so scared of things they've never seen before, while the creature just sits calmly beside her. She comes to a conclusion: people are scared just because they don't understand, and she wonders if that's really all there is to it. Yu points out that Chito actually likes digging into weird or confusing stuff, like reading books she can't understand, which makes the mystery part fun for her. Chito argues that's not quite right. She keeps her distance from things that look dangerous, especially if she doesn't get them, while Yu always jumps in headfirst. Hearing that, Yu finally admits she's feeling surrounded by things she doesn't know, and for the first time she notices just how thick the mystery feels all around them. Chito quietly agrees as their cart rolls through a vast space full of strange hanging objects, all of them reminders that there's so much they still can't name. Yu and Chito drive their cart straight into a wall of thick fog, barely able to see past the headlights, but pressing forward anyway. Chito notices how creepy it gets when the fog blocks out the city, making everything around them fade into white. While Chito keeps pushing the cart, Yu calls out from behind, making her double-check what's ahead as they roll deeper into the mist. The fog suddenly thins out, and both of them spot this gigantic metal structure made of gears and panels rising up over broken rooftops. Seeing that, Chito is hit with how little they actually get about the world around them. Up close, the old gears creak as they turn slow, filling the air with an unfamiliar noise and reminding the girls how strange the city's leftover machines have gotten. Chito guesses it might be the wind turning the machine, and even though it makes no sense to her, she admits it's kind of interesting to figure out. Yu pokes fun at Chito for always getting curious about weird stuff, while Chito tries to explain how there's music coming from the machine, but neither of them gets it. She hears another odd sound drifting from somewhere, and Chito challenges her to point out exactly where it's coming from. With shadowy shapes floating just ahead in the fog, Yu nudges Chito to go take a look, even if they have zero idea what they're about to find. They spot a sign marking the entrance to the Aeolic power plant, so Chito starts thinking out loud as their ride rattles past all the metal debris. As they rumble along, Chito starts thinking out loud about food again, saying even if something seemed normal, she wouldn't eat it if it acted weird. As the wheels rattle, Yu wonders if they're stuck at the very bottom of everything alive in this world, almost like they're the last links in a missing food chain. The girls roll into a dense field of spinning metal veins, and Yu blurts out that it looks like a forest as the noise gets louder. Staring up at all the machinery, Chito remembers pictures of green forests from old books, places that felt alive and full. Seeing how everything here has turned to metal, Yu tries to connect it back to those stories, but all she finds is a cold, empty shell. Yu finally connects what Chito was describing to the idea of a forest, repeating it out loud while still trying to picture what that even means. She guesses out loud that a real food chain might have existed here, but even saying it, she knows there's nothing left of that world. Both girls go quiet, just staring at the empty rows of machines. The silence makes the whole place feel even more abandoned. They both realize it feels nothing like a real forest anymore, just machines and emptiness. Chito points out how the past has faded from what it once was, and Yu quietly agrees. Looking around at the broken remnants, Chito admits that all they know is what the old book said. The rest of the past is just gone. Their vehicle bumps along. Chito tries to keep the mood up, but ends up just trailing off, since neither of them knows what to say about so much loss. Chito admits they know nothing about what came before, but thinks they can at least keep moving forward and watch what happens next. She points out that the only way to learn more is to keep moving, since no one learns anything if they don't make it through the day. Yu wonders what happens when you die, but Chito shrugs it off, saying there's no way to know because all answers end there. Chito looks up at the machines, saying there's so much they'd love to figure out about this world, but there just isn't enough time. Their little cart keeps moving, leaving them with the fact that some things will always stay out of reach. She ends up stretched out asleep in her coat, and Chito sits quietly, alone with a head full of questions and no answers. They pull up close to a huge metal fence with rows of spinning blades. The path is completely blocked and the engine's noise just echoes. Chito steers the cart along the barrier, scanning for any sort of gap, while Yu wakes up and joins the search for a way through. She checks out the fence and spots something that could be an exit. Yu, still groggy, asks if they can get through there. Yu tries to figure out if that opening leads toward the weird signals they've been following. Chito points them in the right direction. She stands up to get a better look while Chito drives along the fence, both scanning for any possible way out. She notices a big structure up ahead and asks if that's where the signals could be coming from, so they steer the cart closer to check it out. Their vehicle rolls up beside a giant, beat-up submarine half buried under snow and scaffolding. No doubt now that this is something left over from before everything fell apart. Chito stops to snap a picture while Yu scrambles up the metal frame, calling for Chito to follow so they can explore what's inside this massive sub. Both girls pause at the fence, staring up at the huge submarine hulking in front of them, not saying a word as the weight of it sinks in. She carefully climbs up the creaky metal frame, each step feeling shaky and dangerous as she inches toward the entrance for a better look. Yu and Chito stare up at the giant machine together, trying to figure out what it actually is and how powerful it must have been. Chito finally says it out loud. They're probably looking at a weapon. Realizing that makes the mood shift from curiosity to something a lot heavier. She and Yu walk away from the massive submarine, their boots making loud crunches in the snow. The quiet around them just makes everything feel more tense. Chito spots what might be the entrance and tugs at it, but it's stuck. Yu wonders aloud if it even opens anymore, raising doubts right away. As Chito struggles with the door, a strange round creature turns to face them. When they ask about the entrance, it responds in a shaky way, admitting it knows something. The creature reaches out one limb and rests it on the hatch, looking like it's trying to figure out what to do next. It finds a certain spot and starts fiddling with the hatch, making a soft sliding noise as the inside mechanism moves. A close-up on the creature's huge eyes shows how focused and maybe a little nervous it is as it works on the door. Suddenly, heavy gears grind and a loud clunk echoes out. The strange lock is actually starting to open now. The hatch pops open with a bang, making Chito and Yu both jump back. Neither of them expected it to move that fast. The path inside is finally clear, so Chito and Yu sit quietly for a second. Even though they can go in, they both seem a bit unsure. Yu goes first and climbs down the ladder, the metal echoing under her weight. Chito stays above for a second before heading down too. She mentions to Chito that the weird metallic clanging is just their footsteps ringing out in the empty space below. The girls step into the old control room full of blank screens and ask if all this stuff is from the past, unsure what any of it even does. Boots clomp on the floor as Yu and Chito step into a new, quiet place, unsure what kind of danger or surprise might be inside. They walk up to a huge metal door plastered with warning signs and a big hazard mark, knowing they're not supposed to be here. Yu crawls up first and Chito follows, both squeezing through a gap above the door because they're just too curious to turn back. She stops for a second to take in the new room, looking nervous and amazed at the strange space they've entered. Tall walls covered in radiation signs make it really clear just how much this place was sealed off and why nobody came here anymore. The girls walk into a huge storage area lined with massive tanks, all marked with radiation warnings. Their voices and footsteps bounce around, making the emptiness feel even bigger. Yu wonders aloud why the room is so clean, while Chito points out it's probably just because nobody has been inside for years. Chito tells Yu that what really catches her interest is the mystery, wondering what people once did in this kind of place and hoping they'll learn something meaningful. Standing in the quiet, Chito thinks about what pieces of the past might still be buried here for them to find. Yu says she's most curious about how people actually lived here, what they wore, what they said to each other, all the small stuff most people never think twice about. Chito's not sure any of it really matters now. She glances at Chito and admits that sometimes it feels like it really is just the two of them in this empty world. Chito climbs up to take a better look. Yu calls for her attention, wanting to hear what Chito really thinks about it all. She quietly admits she feels kind of lonely too. Right then, Yu spots something and quickly calls her over to check it out. Chito looks puzzled as Yu says she smells something odd coming from a box nearby. Settling down inside what looks like an abandoned control room, the girls pop open the old box to see what's inside. Yu hands Chito a piece from the box, saying it looks pretty dark. Chito wonders if it's really okay to eat food that's this old. She decides to give it a try and takes a bite, surprised that it actually tastes pretty good considering how long it's been sitting here. Chito chews on her own piece and ends up smiling. It's surprisingly tasty, way better than she expected. They both sit back for a second, enjoying the flavor together and realizing they found something special by accident. As Chito laughs about the taste, Yu suddenly realizes it's chocolate, something neither of them thought they'd ever eat again. She takes another look at the bar, trying to figure out what actually makes it taste like chocolate after all this time. She says they've learned something new about the old days from tasting it, but Yu doesn't quite get how that's important. She wishes they could somehow record this discovery, looking down at the chocolate and feeling how easy it is to lose things like this. Suddenly the screen in the background blinks to life, catching Yu off guard as random letters start scrolling across. She didn't expect any reaction from those controls. Chito notices the letters moving on the monitor and tells Yu something is connecting. Yu stares, confused by the sudden technology springing to life. She finds a bunch of old photos and calls Yu over. They huddle together, surprised to see snapshots of people and rooms left behind from way back when. While sorting through the stack, Chito realizes they never took their own pictures before. One photo freezes her, a shot of Kanazawa, the mapmaker they traveled with once, standing next to a woman neither of them recognize. Both girls get quiet, letting it sink in that Kanazawa had a different life than they knew. More of the pictures show just the same woman, always alone. Chito guesses these must be Kanazawa's photos, little pieces of his lost past, quietly saved in this room. The video keeps playing and Chito just stares as the girl in the recording mentions how whoever they're talking about was found alone in the end. Yu gets excited by a huge wall of organized folders and wants to dive in, but Chito stops her before she tears through everything in her usual rush. They both look up as the wall of folders suddenly slides open, making a burst of paper flapping sounds that makes the place feel strangely alive. Chito is stunned by just how many faces and memories these photos hold, suddenly aware that people once filled these rooms, and she can't believe how much a camera captured. She leans closer, scanning each photo and trying to take in how much of the past was saved right here. Out of nowhere, the monitor lights up and glitches, startling Chito with a sudden buzz and pulling her focus to the screen. Chito and Yu watch, surprised, as the faded screen starts playing a video from years ago, where a group is giving an update about their machine experiment. The girl in the old video introduces the machine on display, explaining it by name and saying it was just a sample model they had on hand. The recording goes deeper. She explains they had to add special programming for productivity, and the design had to survive tough checks. Yu points out the people in the video are about their age, which really hits Chito. Chito and Yu keep watching as the old recording complains that things were supposed to work out. Yu asks if Chito's learning anything from all these old files, and Chito admits she's picked up a bit, even if Yu's only thinking about snacks. Chito thinks out loud that maybe it's always just been her and Yu, realizing how isolated they really are as she touches the old display. As the video shows a family joking and cheering up their kid, Chito starts to see how daily life once looked, real routines, not just survival, and it changes how she thinks about the past. Chito and Yu watch quietly as the family in the old video laughs and shares fries, finally realizing that people before them weren't as lonely as they seemed. Right from the start, Chito notices the strange cat-like creature is gone again, and gets uneasy not knowing where it went. While messing with the old radio, Chito wonders out loud how the creature manages to get it to talk to them at all. She starts to ask the creature where it's been, but stops when she spots its tail poking out of the shadows nearby. When Chito gets closer, she realizes the animal looks way bigger than before, and isn't sure if it just changed, or if she's misremembering. Suddenly, Chito sees another creature that looks almost the same, leaving her confused about how many of these things there actually are. Still clutching the radio, Chito blurts out in shock. Right in front of her eyes, the original cat creature grows huge almost instantly. Yu, who was out of sight, reappears looking startled as she tries to figure out what's happening between Chito and this creature. Her eyes go wide. Something about this growing creature and the weird vibe of the whole scene makes Yu freeze. All at once, Yu shouts Chito's name, panicked now that Chito is directly in front of the giant creature's open mouth. With no time to move, Chito gets swallowed whole by the creature, leaving Yu totally stunned. The creature swallows loudly, and a frozen Chito realizes in horror that Yu is now trapped inside. She just stares ahead, not really processing what just went down. A heavy silence hangs over everything as Chito's mind goes hazy, the reality sinking in that Yu is gone now. The giant creature slithers off with Yu inside, and Chito just sits there, feeling tiny and powerless to do anything. Cautiously, Chito steps closer to the dark doorway, hoping for some sign of Yu, but only finds emptiness. She drops to the ground, overwhelmed by how fast all of this happened and stunned. She really lost Yu like that. Panic creeps in deeper as Chito's eyes swirl and she starts to realize just how helpless she feels right now. Breathing out hard, Chito wipes sweat from her face and fights to get her mind focused and do something about it. She yanks her helmet down, forcing herself to shake off the fear so she can actually do something to help Yu. Hands shaking, Chito grabs a sword and tells herself that Yu must still be okay inside since there hasn't been enough time for anything worse. She plants her feet, squeezes the sword tighter, and tries to steady her nerves for whatever comes next. Staying alert, Chito scans the area and keeps the sword ready, torn between fighting and trying to talk things out. She freezes when the creature suddenly shows up again, tense and uncertain about whether she should make a move or hold back. She calls out to the creature and flat out asks if it plans to eat her too, testing if it will come after her or maybe respond somehow. The creature just shakes, making no move to speak, and Chito remembers it needs the radio, the one Yu had, to really communicate. Grabbing the smaller animal, Chito wonders out loud if using it as a go-between might help her reach the bigger one and get Yu back. She creeps toward the doorway, sword in hand, annoyed that she can't simply command the creature, since it probably doesn't understand a word she's saying. She mutters that maybe the cat creature was harmless when it was small, but warns that as they grow, these things might actually turn on humans. The stress finally catches up, and she stumbles and falls, nerves shot. She gets up despite the ache, shakes off her hesitation, and pushes ahead. She knows Yu needs her right now. She sits quietly inside the creature's body, looking blank and unsure what will happen to her next. Chito pushes open the heavy hatch and scans the snowy field, spotting Yu's head sticking out from inside the strange creature across the way. She freezes in shock, relieved to see Yu alive but totally lost on what to do now. She lights up with relief and waves her arm free from inside the creature, calling out to Chito. She tries to wriggle out, and then the creature just spits her up with a blast of movement. She shouts Yu's name and scrambles forward, hoping to catch her as she's thrown out. She shoots out of the creature's mouth and rolls awkwardly across the snowy ground. She crashes straight into Chito, knocking them both over as Chito tries to hold her up. Chito hugs Yu close, asking if she's okay, totally shocked that Yu is somehow fine after being inside the creature. Yu admits she probably could have tried harder to escape, but says the creature didn't hurt her at all. It doesn't eat live people. The girls realize the creature is speaking through the ship's radio, letting them know it can understand their words even though it can't actually talk. Over the radio, the creature finally explains the truth. The one they met is just a young one who got separated from its group. The creature admits this whole situation is pretty unusual, hinting it doesn't really expect things to play out like this either. It goes on to say their kind can only talk when they're nearby, which is why things got so messy before they met. The creature stretches its strange body, showing off how it communicates. Musical notes seem to fill the air as part of its message. Now it's clear, the creature uses music and sound to send messages, and the girls get how it's been trying to reach out. Chito and Yu watch closely, realizing just how many different ways the creature tries to connect with them. She finally cuts in and asks straight out what the creature is, and why it needed to swallow Yu just to take that tiny machine. The creature explains that old machine held a lot of energy it needed, saying it eats unstable heat sources and breaks them down safely inside itself. It remembers last time they didn't finish their job because everyone fell asleep. Now the creature says things are almost done. The Earth's long life is ending, and Yu and Chito realize this meeting is part of something way bigger. The creature says their role in the city is ending, and warns that the city will start falling apart when they're gone. Yu finally asks if anyone else is still left in the city, while Chito stands by, both of them tense as they wait for the answer. The mushroom creature explains they've checked most of the city, but don't know if any other humans are still around. Chito tries to comfort the small creature on her shoulder, telling it not to worry as she gets ready to hand it back. The tall creature leans down, ready to collect the little one from Chito's care. The small creature clings to Chito's collar and won't move, clearly nervous about leaving her. The larger being gently reaches a limb toward the small creature, slowly closing the gap to take it back. She carefully lifts the tiny creature off her shoulder and holds it out so the tall being can take it back. The little creature gets set down softly by the bigger figure, who tries to ease its worries. The small creature pauses, not sure what to do next, and the tall one says goodbye, ending their short time together. She tries to comfort the creature, pointing out it's got friends here and isn't alone anymore. Once the goodbye is over, the tall figure heads off and the little creature finally scurries across the ground by itself. Right after touching the ground, the tiny creature puffs up and dashes beneath a giant mushroom, blending in with a group of others just like it. The moment it disappears under the mushrooms, a bunch of similar creatures pop out, calling and making noise from the shadows. Yu tries to lighten the mood by asking about old stories. Chito just shrugs it off, figuring it isn't worth getting worked up over the end of the world. Both girls lean closer, watching the small creature still clinging to Chito's coat, not quite ready to relax. Yu chuckles a little, and when Chito asks what's funny, Yu just brushes it off and says it's nothing. Chito quietly tells Yu that the creatures were singing that same sad song they heard before, and both girls get that it isn't just a tune, it's about everything they've lost. She admits the song is really about endings, and the two of them sit together in silence, looking up at the dim, fading marks on the wall. Chito suddenly remembers what a ship is, and blurts out that it's just a vehicle for moving across water, which seems important now. She starts thinking out loud. If ships float, how are you actually supposed to steer one, and do they have any hope of figuring it out? Yu agrees the whole idea sounds tricky, and both girls realize they can't even guess how to control a ship at all. They look around and see only ice. They don't have an actual boat anyway, so there's no obvious way forward. Yu tries to get Chito to solve the problem on the spot, but Chito gets annoyed since the answer isn't nearly as simple as just naming what they need. Chito points out that even if they tried something like melting ice and using a ship, they'd burn up all their fuel way too fast, so that's not happening. Yu suggests a weird idea about mixing things to get water, but Chito's unimpressed and doesn't respond, thinking it's pointless. Chito bluntly says mixing their water with something gross just makes a mess, and even in survival mode, that crosses a line for her. She tells Yu to drop it and focus on real solutions, still muttering under her breath about how annoying the whole conversation is. They come up against a barrier or trench that blocks their path, so the journey stalls out. Stuck at the edge, Chito realizes there's no way across, so she decides they have to double back and look for another path. They put the vehicle in reverse and carefully move away from the drop, driving back toward where they started. Yu asks if they're just going back the way they came, and Chito admits it, both a little frustrated since retracing steps isn't what they wanted. They spot a massive dark tunnel up ahead, which looks like it might offer another way through. Chito checks out the tunnel entrance and admits this could really be their only option, so Yu suggests they take it. She worries the tunnel floor looks rough, but with no better choice, they roll the bike inside and ride forward. The further they go in, the more the tunnel feels oddly silent, both girls glancing around at the pipes and strange features along the walls. They tense up as strange noises echo around them, but keep moving, watching each other for signs of what to do next. Yu suddenly calls out for Chito to stop, so Chito brakes hard, both of them straining to hear what just made that noise. Their motorbike goes quiet as a strange echo bounces through the dim tunnel, leaving both girls on edge as they wait for anything else to happen. They stay frozen by the bike, looking all around and trying to figure out where the weird sound is coming from in the shadows. Chito guesses the noise is coming from somewhere below them, and both girls get even more nervous as they listen closely. She realizes it's the sound of water, but the water must be far down, so finding it now is both a relief and another big headache. She figures they still might be able to get to the water below, and Yu quickly pushes to find a way as fast as possible. Even though Yu's eager, she signals she understands they need to be careful, so the girls get ready and start heading back toward the edge. When they return to the huge drop, both girls take a long look down and check out what they'll need to do to reach the water. She inspects a rope tied off at the top, eyeing the climb ahead with clear nerves while their gear sits in a pile beside her. One of the girls places her foot against the stone, grabs the rope, and braces herself, about to start climbing down. She grabs the rope and starts climbing down, steady but tense, focused on getting to the water below without slipping. Before heading down, Chito and Yu give each other a quick high five, each hoping this little gesture will help them both stay brave on the climb. Once they've passed over the edge, the top ledge stays empty for a moment. All you hear now is the faint echo from below. Reaching the bottom, Yu and Chito drop their bags and look around, both relieved to be standing on solid ground again. Chito says they've made it safely while Yu flops down and laughs, stretching out as Chito starts organizing their supplies for a break. Yu finds a can with a drawing and wonders if it's fish, trying to remember what the label sakana means, while Chito figures the picture is probably the answer. She sounds out the word and guesses it's fish, but Chito isn't so sure, thinking they might be off, and has some doubts. They open up the can, joke about the smell, and decide to heat the fish on their little stove, hoping warm food will taste a lot better. The canned fish sits on the stove, quietly warming up while the girls keep an eye on it, hungry and waiting for their first good meal in days. She finally picks up the smell of the heating fish, and her spirits lift, the tasty scent making her a bit more hopeful. She says the fish smells just like the time they cooked some before, and Yu laughs, shrugging that all fish seems pretty much the same. With steam rising, Yu barely waits and digs in, too impatient to let the food cool, definitely ready for a real bite. Leaning back, Yu chews her piece of fish slowly, enjoying the rare treat and warmth, clearly glad to have something decent to eat. Chito sees Yu giggling and can't figure out why, so she asks what's so funny about eating canned fish. Yu bursts out laughing because the fish tastes way better than expected, surprising even Chito with how happy she sounds. Chito starts laughing too, finally admitting the fish is actually really good, and for a moment, they just share how great it feels to eat together. As they stare at the empty cans, the girls wonder if people in the past really got to eat things like this all the time, or if it was just... Yu drops the empty can into the water and calls Chito over, turning it into a game as they watch the can float and bob in the current. She points out the can, laughing about how now the fish on the label looks like it's swimming, making the moment feel lighter. Chito suddenly remembers that ships are built to float on water, which makes her realize the big black building might have been a kind of fallen ship. She starts thinking about how you'd control a boat to actually get where you want, and points out they can't just drift around without a plan. She looks up at the towering walls and finally asks, plain and simple, how they're supposed to reach the very top from way down here. They remember something. If they head west, to the far northwest side of the city, there should be an elevator that goes all the way up. Finding a water channel that runs west, they decide to follow it, thinking it will keep them stocked with water as they go. They joke together about floating down the channel on their cans, and Chito quickly claims she gets front seat if it ever happens. Chito struggles to lift the heavy box, while Yu urges her to keep pulling, but getting it back up really isn't easy. Please support the official release.